OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, very welcome. You are very, very welcome. It is a big show this morning because we get to pick over the carcass of Manchester United one more time, but also we get to celebrate one of the great performances from Liverpool, a signature performance as they absolutely annihilated Manchester United last night. If you have a view, if you're a Man United fan, if you're a Liverpool fan, if you're a Manchester City fan who's quietly purring in the corner going, well, we're going to win the league anyway, and Erling Haaland has basically made it official that he's coming to us, then we'd also like to hear from you. So Owen is here. Owen.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. One of those stories out of all those three elements is significantly more interesting than the other two.
Haaland.
Oh yeah, let's go with Haaland. Yeah, Haaland's definitely the most. Manchester United is like I understand why Liverpool fans watching the coverage last night would have been a little bit frustrated that there was a lot of focus on Manchester United, but they are by a distance the most interesting story in the Premier League right now.
But what if that was like the greatest Liverpool? This is the greatest week in Liverpool history. It could be, right? This could be the hinge point for them to win a quadruple where they beat City in the Cup and they hammer Man United, and it's like they cascade from here on to being the greatest Liverpool team of all time. That's in the mix over the next 8 weeks.
Doesn't matter. Not as interesting as the Manchester United. Like the Manchester United saga, if it was being written right now, they would have got a redemptive arc at some point 6 months ago. Surely 12 months ago. This has gone beyond.
Solskjaer got a new
deal.
Yeah,
that was very redemptive.
Sorry, if you are correct, which you may well be, we have Colin Bowie we cut live now to the bleeding heart of Manchester United. Death by 1,000 cuts. Are you bleeding out?
That's the worst. I said to you both this morning when I came in, out of the 9 years of just awfulness, that was the nadir. Because Ger was saying to me, what about the 5-0 at the start of the season? I was like, yeah, but there was kind of a naivety about that performance. It was like, oh, well, we can definitely beat them, we'll try. And at 0-0, Bruno Fernandes had a great chance at Old Trafford and he blazed it over the bar. And then madness ensued. But last night, it was like a mid to lower level Premier League club turning up at Anfield waiting for their lass. And the players were just walking around.
Sorry. You're deluded that the Bruno Fernandes chance would have had any impact.
1-0 up.
That's like the Connacht fans saying if Carty got that kick.
Hold on, we're not talking about winning the match.
Weekend.
We're talking about the worst moment of the last 9 years.
It would have been 5-1.
After that Bruno chance, yeah. I mean, that was car crash because even in that game, Salah made it 4-0 just before half time. And then Jamie Carragher in commentary kind of made a sympathetic, involuntary groan, being like, oh, this is getting awkward now. I have no more superlatives to talk about how great Liverpool are and how terrible United are. But last night it was just gradual for the whole match, like 2-0 in each half, slightly better in the third quarter of the match, like the first half of the second half, a bit better, but only because Liverpool dropped off slightly. But, you know, one of my complaints in the last 6 months as a Manchester United fan is Bruno Fernandes, as brilliant as he is, and he's been by far United's best player over the last 2 years since he joined in January 2020. You have Cristiano Ronaldo's goals and David De Gea's saves since he returned to form, but overall Fernandes has been United's best player. But what really annoys me about Fernandes is his gesticulation and complaining to other teammates. Even he gave up on that last night. He was walking around. I think it's the low point in 9 years of a terrible time at the club, but also maybe in some form of hope that it was the end of the current era last night, because after the match Ralph Rangnick was talking about Manchester United as if he was a pundit and not their manager, and did not hold back in his quotes. He called it embarrassing. He said it's disappointing, maybe even humiliating. We have to accept they, Liverpool, are 6 years ahead of us now. And that was just one of the quotes that he gave to every outlet he spoke with last night. Bruno Fernandes came out, talked to Sky Sports, and, you read between the lines what he was actually saying was, totally agreeing with Rangnick, trying in some way to say, we'll go to the next game, we'll go to Arsenal at the weekend, we'll keep our heads up. But they all know that this squad, this current United team is spent. It's done. And if you were able to take a year or two out as a football club, if that was possible to go on a gap year, you'd nearly suggested for United. But they're going to have to keep going, and they'll have to seriously rebuild this nearly from scratch. And it's going to be a few years of hurt. But if they go along the right way, to get the right man in, and they back him,
talking about his
never
recovery.
know.
Look, it's like, but there's hope coming over the horizon.
Well, what are you supposed to do? Like, if there's not hope coming on the horizon,
this is what the rest of football is like, Colin. When you weren't being weaned on the glory hunting years of your youth, when you weren't like chasing trophy after trophy after trophy, the rest of the world knew what it was like not to be the all-conquering greatest team in the world. And this is what it's like being a football fan. It's sometimes difficult. Your team loses more than they win.
Yeah,
welcome to reality, Colin.
Yeah, and we were...
And those of us who aren't United fans have
genius.
No sympathy, and we're kind of enjoying
Benefited from it.
just how much of a shit show it is.
It's absolutely, like, it's a phenomenal story. And 6 years, it's fair play to him for putting a number on it. But that would suggest that maybe, where Liverpool are now, they're 2 years out from winning a Premier League title.
How many managers is that? At current rate, that's 4 more managers.
I think that Liverpool hit the jackpot when they got Jurgen Klopp, as well as everything else, to start their acceleration to the top of European football. Like, I mean, there was nothing overly lucky about it because Klopp was a fantastic manager before that, but even they must have been counting their blessings with how unbelievably well this whole thing has worked out. Manchester United need to be lucky as well organised to have that 6-year plan work out where they're at Liverpool's level in 6 years, and that is having a Premier League title in the bank in 6 years' time, a Champions League title in the bank in 6 years' time. That's not about, like, you know, contending in 6 years' time. That's being at Liverpool's level in 6 years.
One of the best teams of all time.
Yeah,
which is not going to happen. Like, unless maybe Ten Hag is an absolute genius, who knows? But it might be the manager after Ten Hag who delivers that. Vinnie Perth made the point in conversation with Stephen Doyle, and we'll play some of it a little bit later on after the live commentary last night, that Liverpool had a new manager in place 4 days after they sacked Brendan Rodgers. And I went back and looked. They'd been flirting with Klopp for about 4 months beforehand. They'd met him secretly in New York. He was in the Plaza, staying under an assumed name, and got to the reception, and the woman behind the counter was German and recognised him. So he was like, I'm here on holidays. I'm definitely here to see the sights and visit some museums. But Liverpool met him for 3 hours and were like, okay, this is the guy, we want him. Ten Hag has taken however long it has been because they gave Solskjaer a contract again when they shouldn't have, and they hired Solskjaer in the first place when they shouldn't have. Perfectly good interim manager if that was going to be your thing. And in the meantime, they passed up Conte. They passed up Pochettino, who would have been available at the time if they wanted him. They could have had Ten Hag a year and a half ago, but there is no plan. That's the problem. The problem isn't that the new manager is going to come in, and now the transfer committee of the football brains who appointed Ranić, and that has been an excellent decision. They're the ones who are going to be out there buying the players that Ten Hag wants to inculcate his style of play and bring the club forward. And you have to say, it doesn't make any sense still. It doesn't feel like there's a throbbing genius eye of Sauron football brain that knows everything that there is to know about world football, because that's not coming through. Even the young players who are like, let's give the young players a game. It's very interesting to see Hannibal completely stolen the possession, just taken off him. Like, this is a big game here, buddy. This is a big game. And Alanga caught in possession a couple of times by Andy Robertson. It's like, yeah, okay, this is the future. It doesn't look that bright, does it?
No, the geniuses, they're few and far between. Owen hitting it there, Liverpool hit the jackpot with Jurgen Klopp, and United are looking for that golden ticket again because they've got 2 of them in their lifetime, Matt Busby and Alex Ferguson, and they need another one, and it's very, very difficult to come by. So in the meantime, you do have to systemically reboot the whole thing.
I'd say they could have got Klopp if they wanted, though.
It's nothing to do with a manager, really. It's just, for the love of God, appoint the manager and give him a structure that the manager believes in. And Rangnick said the same himself last night. He said it. That's what you need. You need to bring someone in, and the club to bring in the players that actually suits that manager. Last night was just ridiculous. I feel very sorry for Phil Jones, thrown in for the first time since Wolves on the 3rd of January, which United lost, but Jones wasn't actually bad that night. And last night, after 20 minutes, he was blown really heavily, looked absolutely shattered. Because you're playing this iteration of Liverpool on top form. And I mean, that's difficult for a player who's playing every week. And to throw this guy in after 3.5 months away and hoping for the best.
Eamon says, £1 billion spent since Ferguson left, and they started back 5 of Wan-Bissaka, Jones, Maguire, Lindelof and Dalot at Anfield. £1 billion worth of that's it right there. And the cry laughing emoji sideways, which is my favourite one.
You have to accept, Colm, this is hilarious.
No, how? Why would I accept that? Why would I laugh at that?
Every single element of this is
no. I mean, the only
side-splitting hilarious.
Hilarious was that it was like a League Cup 3rd round lineup at the end for United. It was just players just waiting for the final whistle. Do you know those matches where 3 or 4 senior players might play because they're out of form or whatever? There's a break and play afterwards, and there's no games coming up, and then it's surrounded by 7 or 8 squad players, but this was Liverpool at Anfield in the Premier League when United are going for the Champions League, and somehow the club have found themselves in this situation. Like, I agree, that is actually definitely hilarious for everybody else.
It's also
but
the
for
anger.
United fans, it's like that's why I think this is the low, and there's been loads of lows.
They needed an Arsenal Fan TV about 4.5 years ago.
They have one. It's Sky Sports. Like that's what makes this so on a level above it, is that we are getting Manchester United Fan TV every single week from Roy Keane and Gary Neville. And like I said it on Twitter last night, Roy Keane didn't have a level to go to. He realised that himself. So he went for the "I'm not even angry, I'm sad" line. That is the only place he had left to go. Like, where does he go?
Yeah, that was really sad. That was sad to see.
I'm not angry, I'm sad. What's the next point after that? I'm not angry, I'm not sad. What is the next adjective that Roy Keane is going to use to describe his feelings?
That was sad to see.
And like you like.
What's the eighth stage? The eighth stage of grief.
I don't think anybody's ever got there. But Manchester United are about to discover new areas of grief. The new world of sadness as discovered by
It's a
Roy
postmodern
Keane.
problem. What happens when you go through the 7 stages and there's an 8th stage and everybody's like, it's a leap of faith into the unknown. What comes after that?
Coming in. So many people are really happy about this. It's terrible to see. Owen, do you have any ways that United can be hopeful?
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that.
Anyways.
So, watching the game from a Manchester United perspective yesterday, just trying to find positive things that happened last night from Manchester United thing. Like, I finished up with a list of 12 things. It's a lot longer than
12
you might
apostles.
think. 12 apostles. So, number one is the first 4.5 minutes of complete control. No chances conceded. Bruno Fernandes makes Alisson rush into a couple of passes. Life is good. 5 minutes in, David De Gea doesn't get decapitated by Trent Alexander-Arnold smashing the ball into the back of the net after Liverpool have just opened the scoring. The third one, after about 9.5 minutes, is a great tribute by Ralph Rangnick to take Paul Pogba off at this exact moment to mark the fact that he has been a consistent 9.5 during his glittering Manchester United career. Number 4, 21 minutes in, Manchester United are only 1-0 down. Number 5, 38 minutes, Rashford gets in behind. It's a heavy touch. It doesn't matter. He got in behind him. That's how you beat him. Liverpool's high line exposed as fraudulent once again. Number 6, Bruno overhits an indirect free kick, but Alisson has to gather it. No one will know the difference if he stick that one down as a shot on target. Number 7, after 65 minutes, Jurgen Klopp looks momentarily bemused. On the 70th minute, number 8, a stat appears on the bottom of the screen. Second half so far, Manchester United have 2 shots, Liverpool's 1. Manchester United have 5 opposition box touches compared to Liverpool's 3. Number 9, the 84th minute, the best hair on show is still up for grabs. Manchester United clinch it by sending Hannibal Mejbri onto the pitch. Number 10, Mejbri makes Henderson angry. He is now trending on Twitter. 11, Roy Keane says he isn't angry. That is very, very good news. And number 12, Bruno Fernandes apologises. So everything is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You must be happy with that.
Yeah, no, look, I wasn't in a great mood coming in, but thanks for that.
Manchester United are a living, breathing representation of Hagler's famous statement, "It's tough to get out of bed to do roadwork at 5 a.m. when you've been sleeping in silk pyjamas. Phenomenal wages, no pressure to win, and a culture based on money, not glory," says James Jackson on Twitter with the hashtag OTB AM. JC says, Ralph being absolved of any responsibility is a curious one. It's not all his fault. I'm not saying United would have won, but starting with 5 at the back yesterday was the wrong call. I can see why you did it. If you had 5 good quality defenders who knew you had to play 5 at the back, it might, and if they'd done it sometimes during the season and it had been successful, then maybe, like, say what you want about Solskjaer, but sometimes his teams could do that. His teams could put in a super defensive performance and hit you on the break and get 0-0 draws, or, get good results against the good teams, because he seemed to at least accept that my team is kind of crap.
That's
Not
the one
against
thing that they
Liverpool.
had with Rangnick. At least United weren't conceding goals for a long time, but now that's gone. It was like 2 against Norwich, 4 last night, 2 against Spurs recently. So we had like a 1-0, 1-all thing going on for a while, which was, you're not going to become a United fan to support their defensive solidity, but at least he was stopping the shedding of goals. But now that's stopped. And I feel like he's given up, and he's on the cusp of going on the most almighty public rant about this club, and he's just holding back because he's in the game long enough and he's professional enough. But he wants to say what he really thinks about United.
And it's going to be very interesting to see if he has any role in that club into the future. Eamon says, the greatest football team ever and the worst United team ever. What a time to be a Liverpool fan, says Eamon, who's left a comment on the YouTube stream. Comco says, the saddest part of the United loss is that they glamorised a young player coming on and giving away the ball and giving away fouls. That's just how bad it was. I didn't see too much of the post-match. Were they saying Hannibal at least was...
Well, in
in.
the match, Gary Neville was like, I'm actually proud of him.
He was proud of him, and like literally all the guy was doing was giving away frees, and he was like, well, at least he's trying, at least he's doing something. What are the rest of them doing? But every time he got the ball, he was either giving it away or fouling someone. But like, it was nice to see a fella run around and throwing a few tackles, like a bit old school. But
going to be in the highlights reel for that fourth goal forever.
Yeah.
Well done, Liverpool. What annoys me most as a United fan is it's cost United £1 billion to end up this bad. No soul in this team, says MOC. Gerard says, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. 5-0 in October, 4-0 in April. That's progress, isn't it? You know, I mean, it could have been 7. Like, that's what... It was there for Liverpool if they'd just been at it for the first 15 minutes of the second half.
That's the scary thing about it. And Salah could have had a hat-trick at the end. Like, yeah, there could have been loads of moments. Whereas for United, the first shot on target was the 55th minute by Jadon Sancho, which trickled into Alisson's arms. And Rashford had a half-decent chance at 2-0 when the ball came over the top. But, like, Rashford was totally awful. But I wouldn't hold it against just Rashford. They all were. Some more than others. But, like, the confidence is at an all-time low. And it's the body language. The body language is the most concerning thing for me last night. They seem to completely give up as early as the 4th minute, just before Salah squared it to Luiz. Well,
that's the fragile confidence, and it's gone. So, we will be picking over the carcass with this a little bit later on. Andy Mitten's going to join us. We have David Meyler going to join us 8:10. Sports News at 8:40. GAA Championship. We're going to preview the football with Tommy in a moment. Sarah Dunham is going to join us in studio at 9:10 to look back at the Cork hurling weekend, to look forward to the camogie season, and then we'll play out with the Koi Gig pod at 9:30 this morning. But at 7:47, a reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The Manchester United fans, they walk amongst us. They live and breathe amongst us. Tommy Rooney, how's the air you're breathing?
I didn't think we'd be talking Manchester United this morning, lads. I wouldn't have come on.
How are you, Tommy? Are you okay, son?
I didn't like the little dig at Hannibal there. Well, I actually thought that Hannibal came on last night and actually showed.
He's one of the 12 apostles.
Oh, they were disgraceful.
He was great giving the ball away for the 4th goal, wasn't he? Superb.
You did just admit that you didn't see it. He actually had a bit of bite about him. He left a bit on Henderson.
I didn't see the post-match. I saw the game.
Oh, sorry. You saw the last.
You left a bit on Henderson.
I think that was good to see.
What? But like and how well did he do for the 4th goal, Tommy?
Yeah, well, he messed up there, but he's only a kid, right?
Well, it's Man United.
It's
Manchester United. You can't say he's only a kid. It's Manchester United.
I've been in WhatsApp groups with Liverpool fans for a couple of years, and you know, for the first, say, 7 or 8 years ago, when Rodgers was in charge, they were very loud, they were annoying. Both teams weren't great, so you might engage a bit. Then over the last couple of years, the Liverpool fans kind of went quiet as, you know, they got close to winning. And they won. They were allowed to enjoy their win. Last night, a lot of Liverpool fans, you know, they tried to engage in a bit of crack, bit of fun.
You were having none of
I don't think any Manchester United fan was having it. Like, it was like, oh yeah, what do you think it's going to be? 5-0, 6-0? Like, there was no other way that game was going. And I think what Fernandes said after the game summed it all up. And it's shocking. He said, Liverpool had something to fight for and we had nothing to fight for. How can you be a professional footballer and say that?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Was it lost in translation?
No, that stuck out to me as well, Tommy. That was definitely a sort of. Did he say the silent bit out loud there, Bruno Fernandes?
I mean, maybe that was it. To fight for.
Like exactly.
And it's also the biggest game in world football.
Never mind that though, but you're fighting for pride to play against Liverpool. Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Anyway.
Pathetic.
I'm delighted for you, Tommy.
I don't really care either, like, you know.
Well, you do. You see, that's the thing.
It's not like it's mead.
Apathy is the 8th stage of grief, isn't it? It's like, we no longer care about this. Yeah. I never loved you anyway. That's the post-grief, isn't it?
That's post-grief.
This love that we had and that we shared and that you were like the most important thing in my life forever and ever and ever and ever, that I dedicated everything to, that I knew everything about, that I like studied, that I literally spent 100,000 hours of my 120,000 hours of life thinking about, never mattered to me in the first place.
It's
yeah,
just...
well, you see, it's the United fans that go to the games that I genuinely feel sorry for. I waste my time watching them. That's a choice I make. Last night, I asked myself, okay, when is it acceptable to switch this off without telling anyone? But I didn't. I was like, I can't. For the lads that are still in the stadium, I've got to leave this game on. So I sat watching it.
Mark of respect. Yeah, Manchester United at the stage of grief, they're just like knocking over the tombstone at this stage. It's just like, I want this to be...
Unless it's a zombie, that which is undead can never die. That's the bit that we get to where it's like...
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Anyway, Tommy, there's important matters in more local issues.
Yes, real football.
Yeah. So, what's the excitement level on the football pod like at the moment?
Well, I was really excited, and I asked Paddy Andrews at the top, and Paddy was like, "Meh." It was a bit of a slow start. I actually thought it was a pretty decent start to the championship weekend. Maybe that's because I was caught up in the hurling as well on Sunday. I think it was a shame that, again, I am starting to be giving it. Did you watch any of Sligo New York live? It was class. I don't know if you saw any of it, but it was on GAA Go, and it was two teams. We didn't know what to expect from New York. But it was two teams at a fairly similar level, and I really think it was a good indicator that the Tailteann Cup, if the coverage is given to it, can actually be really good this summer, because it was a cracking game of football. Just brilliant. And it was just a shame London Leitrim wasn't shown, because that was dramatic as hell. I know there's a 2-minute highlights package up, but it just doesn't give you the sense that I got listening to it on Ocean FM. Cracking game of football. And then Tyrone for Man on Saturday night, Ger. We saw some bits and pieces from the All-Ireland champions that would make you think that they're in an okay place. And then there were some moments, and you were just like, how on earth did Tyrone win the All-Ireland last year? So.
There was definitely people in the aftermath of that All-Ireland win saying this is a bad All-Ireland. Tyrone are not a good team, or not a great team. And certainly, we'll see. It's early days. I do want to. There was big news overnight because, in your preview, you were making the case that the players returning for Donegal, allied to the suspensions that Armagh have, will make Donegal the overwhelming favourites in your view, and certainly James O'Donoghue's view, in the game against Armagh this weekend. Donegal and Armagh, two Division 1 teams who both believe that they can be the next Tyrone. No doubts about it. Internally in that camp, they both believe. Tyrone did it last year. There's no reason why we couldn't do it. We could easily, maybe just about squeak through against Kerry after extra time if we pull some shenanigans in the build up to it. They must be thinking that, right? And then
100%.
And then overnight, the pendulum swings rapidly back in favour of Armagh, because all their players, who we thought weren't going to be able to play because of suspension, are back. Donegal didn't appeal their suspensions, so they're not getting off. They joining in a melee, an extra man in. What's the phrase that James O'Donoghue was obsessed with?
Oh, third man in. That's what Conor McKenna got sent off for the last time, even though I think technically he was the fourth man in. But yeah,
something melee. What was the phrase?
Well, contributing to a melee.
That's it. Yeah, contributing to a melee, which is the buzzword du jour in GA circles. So, Tommy, this is big news. The Armagh lads are all off.
Massive news, Ger. And it just highlights the state of the disciplinary process in the GA. It's crazy. If you can get the right solicitor, if you can find the right loophole, and there are many loopholes, you can get away with it. Now, Donegal did not appeal the suspensions to Neil McGee and Orm McFadden-Ferry. McGee, obviously one of their most well-known defenders over the last decade, had been out injured for a lot of the league, but McFadden-Ferry has been one of the most important players, and Donegal are lacking defenders like him. Now, when they didn't appeal it, I was thinking, are they being cute here? Is that smart? Because one of the most obvious incidents in that row is, well, one of the two most obvious incidents is that Rian O'Neill definitely throws a push or something. He does something with his hands. So O'Neill was one of the players cited for Armagh. But I thought Michael Murphy probably got away with some sort of a push or some sort of a contribution to the melee that was pretty obvious. It's hard to miss Michael Murphy. So I was wondering, did Donegal not appeal for fear that they might lose Murphy? Well, Donegal should have appealed, because all the Armagh lads got off, as you said. O'Neill, we heard last week, got off. That was the big news. But Aidan Nugent has been one of their stars of the league. Scored 1-6 the last day against Donegal. Has been playing as a kind of corner forward, dropping deep, adding a couple of points every game. And as James made the point in the pod this week, you're struggling to see where Armagh are going to get the scores from, especially when players like Rory Grugan are supposedly injured. Andrew Murnan, who had a massive year last year, and over the last couple of years whenever he's played, is also injured. He's a big marquee footballer. Kieran Mackin, who also got a suspension overturned, is also injured, so he's going to be missing. But Soupy Campbell, another guy you could rely on to come off the bench and kick 3 points, is back for Armagh. For me, that slightly swings the pendulum back in their favour. So I don't know if I'm officially allowed to change my prediction here. Not that my predictions matter. It's James and Paddy is why people listen to the pod. But I think I'd be changing. I don't know what. I asked James last night. He didn't tell me whether or not he was.
The humility is so admirable.
Thank you, Owen.
Oh, the practice. Their practice. All the bars that Tommy has been propping up in GAA clubs the length and breadth of the country. It's not me. It's not me. It's the lads. Honestly.
It's the lads, exactly.
What sort of hit rate do you think people have with appealing these things? It feels that the only way the best way to get off, and the only way to get off a ban from a GAA match is just to appeal it, and there is a very, very high chance of you being successful in that appeal.
Let's count up the hit rate here, right? We had Ozzie Gleeson, Waterford didn't appeal. The two Donegal boys, they didn't appeal. So those 3 red cards stood. The other red cards that I can remember over the last couple of weeks, Sean Carabine from Sligo appealed, he got off. Keith Byrne from Leitrim appealed 3 times, didn't get off. Now what happened in that game is there wasn't enough video footage to prove it either way. That was the problem in the Division 4 game. That's the reason why they couldn't get that off, apparently. There wasn't enough video footage, and that red card had been called from an umpire the far end of the pitch, who supposedly had seen an off-the-ball strike. I couldn't find out from either Sligo lads or the Leitrim lads what happened in that game. But the reason that appeal fell, that Leitrim couldn't get their the second highest score in the country off, was that there was no video evidence to do so. So we had loads of cameras on the Armagh appeal. So, I don't know how on earth they got him off, but they got him off. And, Conor McKenna, you'd be expecting Owen that he's going to get off too, because Joe McQuillan picked him out of that row as he was getting raked on the ground, and 2 Fermanagh boys having a go at him.
So
it's pretty high rate.
You guys were saying, I thought that, I actually think it's wrong. You're saying the referee in the field shouldn't make the decision; they should leave it to the aftermath. You can't do that. You can't. You've got to
even at the end of the game, Ger?
Yeah, exactly, because the referee's assessor is assessing the referee on his performance in the moment. They're not assessing his performance. Oh, you didn't give that suspension, but they were giving it afterwards. You get bonus points for that. And what if the game goes to extra time? Right? Do you know,
it affects it in game as well. It's not just about the suspension. What if it happens 30 minutes into the game, 50 minutes into the game? There's still a significant amount of time within that game that the punishment should be.
The rules have to be the same in the last 5 minutes as they are in the first 5 minutes. Otherwise, what's the point in the rules?
I want to put it to you this way: would it have been better if the brawl back in 1996 was dealt with at the end of the game? 5 minutes in.
I mean,
everyone's hopping off each other.
They should have sent everybody off.
But the problem there was just a very, very bad decision. It's a bad human decision. Are we suddenly saying don't make the human decision because you're making a bad human decision? I appreciate that it's hard, but the referee still has to make a decision when something like that happens. I think in '96, of course, it would have been better if they'd sent nobody off, because what they ended up doing was terrible. But that was a very specific incident where it was a terrible outcome.
Imagine to this day it was like this pitch battle where 100 people are involved and no one was sent off. The postscript would be, and not one of them was sent off.
It would have been better than.
But afterwards, if you went back, if you went back afterwards and you banned those boys, and
if Mayo weren't so flaky. If Mayo weren't so flaky, it wouldn't have mattered that they sent off different players with different talents.
But
that's what happened.
You lose McHale and you're flaky as a result of that, I would say.
No. It's an inbuilt cultural thing that they have been trying to shake off before and since.
They'd only lost 89 at that point.
Well,
it wasn't fair. Mayo's biggest
60
player
years.
sent off.
It's 100 years now.
There wasn't many finals.
Sorry, go on, Tommy.
No. It's all right. But
let's relitigate.
You're right.
Let's relitigate 96.
Yeah. I just think maybe when an incident like this, now the brawls, they're absolutely horrendous. It's pathetic. I don't know why they keep happening. I hate the headlocks. I was delighted that there was players sent off for headlocks the last day. There shouldn't be striking going on a football pitch. Fair enough, hard hits, whatever you want, but the melees are just pathetic.
They are pathetic.
So I would like to see them got rid of. But just the McKenna red card the other day, it just didn't make sense. He was trying to protect his teammate who was getting a baiting.
Yeah,
and you've got to allow for that in a way.
No, you actually you don't. You were accidentally encouraging the law of the jungle, which encourages the melee. It absolutely encourages the melee. Now you're right, correctly diagnosed. It's like not giving the ball up, and James O'Donoghue, not an AFL fan, cannot raise higher in my estimation than he already was, I thought. But there he goes, just that little casual dig to the AFL. Not a big fan of it. Like, come on, James, we need to say this, right? It's not a game full of skill, but I think that's right. That would fix the whole thing, and that would mostly stop most of the brawls and the melees, which are all of these kind of bullshit, toxic masculinity nonsense.
Yeah. I do think you have to allow for. I don't think you should run 50 yards to get involved and protect your teammate. But if your teammate,
if it's 1-on-1, look after yourself.
Yeah, but if it's the nearest man in, like McKenna was.
No, if it's
you
1-on-1,
cannot
let
leave your
him look
teammate.
after himself.
It wasn't. It was 2-on-1. It wasn't
Well,
1-on-1.
then what's going to happen is the Fermanagh lad's going to get sent off because there's two of them.
But you can't
Like, it's
leave a
fairly
fella
obvious.
get kicked. You can't leave a fella get kicked and get knees in the back and get dragged.
Red card, game over, move on. Come on, they train all year to take a few little digs. It'd be grand.
No,
They'd be grand.
I don't think you can allow.
Well, then now
your
McKenna's
teammate
going to be out for the
lying on
next
ground.
game because of this
not.
macho bullshit. Well,
He's
he
not.
should be. He should
he's
be
not.
by the rules.
He's not because he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything.
McKenna was screwed over, I feel, as well, to be honest, on Saturday.
Okay,
I know
perhaps
I
in this one instance. Perhaps in this one instance. Anyway, the games this weekend, which we haven't even talked about. Mayo Galway. Last week definitely felt like the hors d'oeuvre. We're getting some main courses here. Mayo Galway, right?
4:00.
We shouldn't read anything into the league final from Mayo's perspective.
I agree. I think, Ger, and I think I'd imagine you're of a similar thinking here. If Mayo aren't operating at 110%, if they aren't, flying on chaos, they're not there. Like, there's no point looking at them.
Galway have been a bit of kryptonite for them, not fully, but certainly Galway have not been a pushover for them generally, with maybe the exception of last year in the second half. That game was in Croker, right?
Yeah, it was because of the wide spaces, and you could have social distancing, and you could get 20,000 people in there or whatever it was.
Okay.
Tommy, you had a really good point on the podcast yesterday.
That's rare, wonderful.
Confidence going. About 2020, I'd completely forgotten about the closeness of the match between Mayo and Galway in 2020, and how Galway 100% would have been in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that they'd been absolutely hockeyed by Mayo just a couple of weeks before that, and they'd still come so close. Like, that first of all backs up your point about the league final not mattering, but also that Galway still have a core of players that might, in an alternate universe that isn't too far away from reality, could have been in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I think we're sleeping on. Galway let us down last year, Owen. I think we can all agree in the semi-final or in the Connacht final last year in that second half. There was 6 points up. And it felt
On a point of information, their best player was taken out of the game illegally, and Mayo didn't have the man sent off who should have been sent off first. Like, O'Hora should have been sent off, right?
For the slam.
Yeah, like it's an illegal move.
Probably.
And the impact
Probably
it ended Galway's best player's season. Like, it passed off because he ended up man of the match in the semi-final and gave a brilliant post-match speech, and like is an unbelievably likeable character, but like, he did take out the best player in the opposition, and
3 to 4 points was the scoreline at that point.
Galway acquiesced. Galway were like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. You can do that to us. That's fine."
They did, and they lost Rob Finnerty in that first half, and they ended up bringing on a defensive wing forward, and I think it kind of changed their shape a lot as well in that game. And I think Galway's depth, even though, we're going to talk about it in the pod next week, there's a squad of about 26 inter-county footballers in Galway that aren't actually playing for poor choice at the minute, whether they've been dropped or they've stepped away for different reasons. So what he's been able to develop, like the amount of players that he's got there, and he did find a couple of gems during the league, is very impressive. There was a lot of footballers in Galway, a lot of decent footballers, a lot of good footballers, and players like Shane Walsh who can turn it on. Shane Walsh is not afraid of turning it on the big days. As Owen mentioned, in 2020, kicked 7 points of Galway's 13. He just lacked those around him standing up that day.
Was Comer injured that day? I don't think Comer was fit in 2020.
He wasn't fit. I think you're right. I don't think he was fully fit. He kicked a couple of points that day, but he is flying now.
Right.
Do you remember Owen McLaughlin's black card that day as Galway were bearing down on goal in injury time? Yeah, there was a lot of talk about it as well. So I actually do think that this is going to be a very, very close game. If Mayo lose it, I wouldn't rule them out of competing this year again, because they're always going to be there and thereabouts.
Oh, no.
If Galway win, it really solidifies himself.
It could easily suit Mayo for whatever bullshit reason to go through a backdoor. It's much harder backdoor this year, obviously, than previous seasons. There's none of the cannon fodder in the early rounds, but at the same time, a little bit of off-Broadway sometimes, and a cause and all that crap that seems to stir the soul. Were you going to make 1 point on that?
Well, I was just going to say all four teams in the big games this weekend are probably going to be quarter-finalists anyway. Probably, unless there's like a heavyweight backdoor clash.
Yeah, they could easily meet each other. That's the bit. You're leaving yourself open to chance or hot balls, which I suppose can fix that issue. 4 minutes past 8 this morning. Tyrone won the All-Ireland because of Mayo. End of story, says Dave Cos. Danny Mack says everyone wins the All-Ireland because of Mayo. Noel Kyle says the GAA disciplinary system is a disgrace. It allows thuggery to continue. It does certainly make you think, well, there's no point, there's no fear of a red card beyond the last 15, 20 minutes when my team will have to do without me. I'm going to get this back on the other side. And I don't even know if that does anything. If you get another red card, does it double? It doesn't, because that whole thing is expunged from your record. You're like free to go.
I'm not even sure. You're like the one that stood out to me always was the woodpecker punches from Diarmuid Connolly and Lee Keegan in Croke Park with 80,000 people watching. Cameras on it, all caught, and he gets off 18 hours before the game. I think he gets off in the third appeal, and he ends up playing, I think, in the second half, or does he start the next day in the replay? That's the one that always stood out to me. It was like, oh my God, you can get away with anything.
Okay. Great GAA names.
Tommy, you were talking about Josh Largo-Ellis on the podcast yesterday. Just got me thinking while I was driving up from Kerry. What are the greatest GAA names ever? So just a very quick countdown of the top 8, just an arbitrary number of the greatest ever names that have taken to a GAA pitch. In at number 8, kicking us off, is Barney Rock. Doesn't get enough credit for his name. Gets credit for winning an All-Ireland. Gets credit for his son being one of the greatest free takers of all time.
I do have to also point out that at the time when Barney Rock was playing, one of the all-time great cartoons had a character called Barney Rubble, and
yes.
He was like, I mean, it was world famous to the point of like Simpsons-esque fame, and just kind of out there. And here comes Barney Rock and Barney Rubble at the same time. It's like an underappreciated, underrepresented part of his ability to be the best footballer in the country for a couple of seasons while that was happening.
100%. Doesn't get enough credit for it. So he's in at number 8. Number 7 is Hubert Darcy, the Padraig Pearce's and Roscommon cult hero. I actually don't know if he's a cult hero, but his name is Hubert Darcy, so he absolutely has to be a cult hero. Like in that Connacht club final earlier this year, when their goalkeeper got black carded, Hubert went in goals. It's just such a classic Hubert thing to do. Like, I don't know him at all, but just absolutely, if your name is Hubert, you have to be doing stuff like that. West of the Shannon, they like to call him Hubert. Number 6 is Mitch Jordan, who played with the Wexford Hurlers for 13 seasons. Has Bruce Willis played a character in recent years called Mitch Jordan? I'm not one to suggest he hasn't. Number 5 is Chris Cross, a star of the Tyrone Hurlers over the last little while, a stalwart of the Nicky Rackard Cup. Number 4 is Stuart Mackenzie Smith, great name, an international man of mystery, lined out for Kildare before lining out for London. Just had to do it, had to go international with a name like that. Number 3 is Josh Largo-Ellis. I'm putting him in here at number 3, just such a great name. Doesn't need to do anything in his senior inter-county career. The goal he banged in against Tyrone at the weekend, completely unnecessary. If your name is Josh Largo-Ellis, your legacy is already in cement. He can win 10 All-Irelands and it's not going to change his legacy one bit. Number 2 is Bill Sex, Kildare's finest, captained UCD to Sigerson glory in 1985, and a little bit unlucky not to be in at number 1, to be honest, but we were a mature show here, so we're not going to put him in there. Number 1, the greatest GAA name ever, is Andrew Latouche Cosgrave. Just the best, the member of the Limerick Extended Panel in 2018, and I would say it will be a failing of John Kiley's tenure if he doesn't manage to get game time into Andrew Latouche Cosgrave in an All-Ireland final at some point over the next little while. They're going to win like 12 All-Irelands anyway. They may as well shoehorn him in and just make this thing perfect.
Off the bench for the last 5 minutes to wrap over 3 or 4 points. Everybody wonders, what's the story here?
Exactly. We need more of him, and a fantastic underage player, a very, very good senior, obviously, if he was part of the extended panel a couple of years ago as well. So he's got the skills as well as the name.
Tommy, you're the hardest working man in show business. Obviously, the football pod is out generally of a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. But now, for your delectation of a Sunday evening, before the Sunday game comes on, the agenda's already set. What's happening?
GAA Late Night is happening,
Ooh,
boys.
Sexy.
I was delighted that Joe Malloy jumped in, thankfully, yes. Jerry, it does get a little bit raunchy with Dahi Regan on with me, but Joe Malloy jumped in for a chat the last night. I was looking. The callers were very shy. It wasn't like League of Ireland Late Night, but I do have a clip here just to give you an example. We got 5 or 6 callers in. The quality was really high, but we're looking for a few more next Sunday night. So Galway fans, Mayo fans, Donegal, Armagh, Antrim, Cavan, whatever you're having, the hurling, Clare fans, you have a chance. Let's have a listen to Aidan Foley, who jumped in towards the end of the chat last night to talk a bit of hurling with myself and Dahi. Aidan Foley, you're welcome to GAA Late Night. Do you want to have a word before we wrap up here tonight on the first edition of the show?
How are we doing, lads? Enjoying the show here tonight. It's very good. It's very good now. It's nice to have the hurling back. Said about your favourite Waterford hurler.
Yes.
I would think this year, a man, Patrick Hearn, I would think is going to have a huge influence for the Waterford senior hurling team this year. I've known the chap for years, and I think he's been a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. You know, this man has got man in the match in minor All-Ireland finals, 21 All-Ireland finals, and I think he's 26 now. He looks physically ready to go. He got 4 points today from play from wing forward, and I think he is going to be a massive addition to what Waterford are going to do this year.
Do you think you're now ready? Do you think you're ready? Could you take Limerick if you get to All-Ireland stage? Is it there? Is the depth there? Is the belief there? For them?
Absolutely. I'm actually a Wexford man myself now, but from watching hurling and knowing a bit about Waterford, you know, to list off subs of Irla Daly, Jamie Byrne, Austin Gleeson, Pádraig Manny, Shane Bennett, none of these fellas started today. I absolutely think Waterford are here, they're ready, and I think they're not too far off winning All-Ireland now that yet.
GAA Late Night with Tommy Rooney. What time's it at?
8:30 to 9:30 on a Sunday night. Now, yeah, we're going to leave it at that. I have to say, the Cork fans were incredibly quiet last week. It was disappointing. They were bullied by Limerick. We were looking for them to come on. They're all out in their droves today with your names on YouTube. And they're complaining that Serhant O'Halpin isn't in your best GA names. They're complaining that Christy Ring isn't in there.
Great name.
And they're complaining that Jerry and Ben O'Connor weren't in there. Where were you Sunday night, lads?
Well, they'll get an opportunity. There's a few more weeks for their misery to unfold. It's the Manchester United fans' misery that we're talking about for the rest of the hour. Tommy, you've done a good job. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. And just a reminder that for the Twitter Spaces, all you got to do is join, listen in, and request to speak. I didn't explain that earlier on, but that's all you have to do to chat, and we can add you into the queue. Lads, thanks a million.
David Meyler is up next. In the break, you're going to hear from James O'Donoghue talking about the one player he'd love to be heading into this weekend, the one player he would love to be heading into this weekend. You can listen to episode 13 of the Football Pod right now on podcast. It's in the OTB GAA feed. Just search the Football Pod. It's brought to you in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
After we imploded in the league last year, I wasn't right for a long time.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action.
Something else that I wish we did have more of in the Irish setup was that psychological support.
And the biggest interviews.
When you're an elite athlete and that's just part of who you are, to have that taken away from you is almost more destabilising than going through something like chemo.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
I was just thinking, if I could put myself in someone's position who I'd want to be this weekend, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue, because he's played National League, right, against Tyrone, who'd be fairly defensively strong, Kerry, who have the best defensive record, Armagh, be fairly robust defensively, Donegal, Monaghan, they all have kind of defensive systems. At the moment, Galway have nothing. They don't have any sort of plan to defend against one of the top forwards in the country. So he is licking his lips at the moment. If I was going to say who could be very easily man the match, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue. He could win it on his own if Galway don't fix the problems that we've said over the last couple of weeks. They need to get a defensive system. They need to keep their 6 defenders at home, or 5, at least 5 at all times. And that's the only way they're going to win.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
14 minutes past 8, time to turn back to the 4-0 win for Liverpool against Manchester United. I'm delighted to say David Meyler is with us. David, that was pretty good from Liverpool. Try and put it in context for us. Was it their best performance of the season? Was it even that good? Is there room for them to get better? What did you make of it?
I definitely think Jurgen will look at that and think there's room for improvement. Now, we spoke after the game how well their counter press was, how much, you look at the positions that they won the ball back against United, how high up it was. But it's just like, even, for anyone, whether you're a Liverpool supporter, Manchester United supporter or football supporter, it just looked easy for Liverpool. Like, we all commend Thiago's performance. I thought he was excellent, but there was nobody kind of got near him. They kind of left him run the game. They left him get on the ball. They left him do his flicks and his tricks and kind of fizz the ball around the pitch. So like Jurgen will know that there's tougher tests ahead. Like obviously Rangnick changed that back five. Like he spoke before the game how they'd worked on it, they'd looked at video and all that. I get that. The analysis is part of it. You're going to walk through, video meetings where you're going to talk back about what you've done. But like the first goal is a glaring thing of like their back five is completely all over the place. Like your left wing back is too high. Centre half and Maguire steps out. He's in no man's land. He doesn't know whether to press Mane as Mane turns. He then drops off. The other two centre halves, if you look at their positioning, neither one of them react to the run of Diaz. Dalot's out of position. You've got runners coming from everywhere. It was just, as much as Liverpool were very good, United were awful. And there was a cliche, a bit of both. So I think Jurgen will look at it and think that Liverpool can be better, yeah. Can
you just talk to us about Thiago, right? If you knew that he was playing, right, and you're Manchester United and you get a do-over, right? There's like a weird Groundhog Day where Cher comes on, Sonny and Cher come on, the clock ticks over and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn from yesterday. I'm not going to give Thiago the freedom of Anfield tonight. What could they have done differently?
I think they've gone into the game thinking, right, we're obviously going to play this back five and the four and the one up front, right? Now we're going to be solid, we're going to be hard to break down. You could tell from Ragnick's interviews after, he wasn't very happy with the way they tried to press. He spoke with the first goal, how high up the team was. Now, when you're trying to counteract a midfielder like that, you either, one, drop right off and leave him receive the ball on the other side of the midfield, where he's almost getting his like another centre back. And you kind of say, well, what are you going to do with it there? I'm quite happy for you to pass it to the full backs. But the gaps in between the back five and the midfield were just enormous, that he could pin balls all the way through. So in order to counteract that, you have to drop off. Like your back five and back four have to drop off. So he's playing in front of you. Another option is you just get someone to say, look, your job is to go and mark him and get up against them and stay tight with them and don't even get on the ball. But if you looked at the legs in the midfield, Manchester United's midfield yesterday, you'd probably need someone like a McTominay to go up against them because, Pogba, I know he went off. He's not going to do that. Matic was not going to do that. Bruno's not going to do that. They just didn't have the players on the pitch to be able to get anywhere near Liverpool's midfield.
When Thiago does drop back essentially as at the exact same position as Matip and Van Dijk basically, is he doing that because he's actually trying to draw Manchester United out a little bit? He's trying to create that gap in front of their back 3/5?
No, he's doing that. Inevitably, he's doing that to get on the ball. He has the capabilities. Like, there's always this laugh and joke in football that, defenders are mainly defenders because they're not good enough to play in midfield because they're not good enough on the ball. No, that's not the case, more or less, with all the top teams now, because you see how good defenders are with the ball. But he's going to get the ball because he wants to be the driving force to carry the ball forward, to suck a midfielder out. But if he's getting it in between the two centre halves or out in the left back spot, now what Liverpool do really well is the rotation between, say, they do probably better, I think, on the right side than the left side, with Trent going forward, Henderson peels out wide and Salah comes inside. They create that overload, but it's inevitably they're in the same positions, but it causes so much panic and confusion because when a team is going through all their tactical work, they'll be saying to the left wing back, we need you to, keep an eye on Trent or whatever. But then when he's coming high up and then Salah's coming inside, you could see that from the first goal that they're all over the place. It stunk of something that had only been worked on for 2 or 3 days, and it's very difficult to take on a team like Liverpool in that way.
Well, it stunk of it because that's exactly what it was, right?
Yeah, it was. But you look at then at half-time, of course, there's going to be a few effing and jeffing at half-time. You imagine players have going to have, a few things to say to one another, which you'd expect. I know some people might believe it. I imagine there would have been players unhappy in that change room moaning yesterday. You could see that from the second half, obviously, bringing Sancho on for Phil Jones. There was a bit of urgency in them, but then Liverpool were 2-0 up. They were so comfortable. Liverpool probably created their own problems and gave United a little opportunity to kind of huff and puff in the game, but that was soon put to rest after about 15 minutes.
Can I ask, David, have you been in a midfield where you're literally being passed around, where you have that like one-touch passing, and where the Manchester United players last night literally looked dizzy and they looked fed up and they just run away from the triangle that they were in the middle of and are like, screw this at certain points, especially in the second half? Have you been that soldier? Have you been literally passed around, and how do you deal with it?
I think every professional has been there at some stage where you're going to have those games where you're going to have off days where nothing seems to go right. Like you have to be defensively solid. Like my job as a 6, like I played there most of my career, was you keep the ball in front of you. Like a great example of that is, you know, for the 4th goal, for Salah's 2nd goal, like Harry obviously plays that ball to the young lad Hannibal, Grand, whatever. Like he's a young boy, he loses the ball, but Harry then gambles and steps out and jumps out of position. Whereas you think Harry should have said to himself, leave the ball, go to Mane. I'm not leaving any space in behind me. Leave the ball, go to him, and then I'll engage him. But instead, he gambles, jumps out. Like as any midfielder, I looked at that as you have to keep the ball in front of you. If the ball's going in behind you, like you're turning around, you're running back towards your own goal. You've got a lot of work to do, and that's where you know you're in trouble, especially if you're a defender, because that means someone's getting in behind the back 4.
I guess it's very dispiriting, like when your team is being torn apart like that. The fans this morning are obviously, the Manchester United fans are saying this is the worst ever. Colin Buick was like, this is of the 9 years, this is the lowest of the low points, and they're saying it's like 6-7 years back from this point. I do wonder if that's actually true, that if a manager who came in and knew exactly what they were doing and the plans had been in place for the whole season and they had something to fall back on, a philosophy, a style of play that they had worked on again and again and again and again and again, surely that playing staff aren't as bad as they've appeared over the last few months / 18 months, are they?
I think they are. I really do. And that's very damning for me to say, because I never played for one of the big 6 clubs. I certainly never played for Manchester United. But you looked at that last night and you just, like, okay, you can disagree or agree with different pundits and their opinions, but there's certain things you look at them, and like last night, certainly with, you know, Roy, Graham, Gary and Jamie, when you listen to them, and you have to agree with them. Like Manchester United are a club where players are talking about leaving. You know, like Matic, I don't understand it. It's not as if, you know, like Fernandinho is one thing, but then he soon put that to bed on Twitter himself, kind of going, well, hold on a minute, we're batting for a lot of titles here. Like, you know, it's not said and done. He's obviously unhappy with his game time, but it's a totally different situation because they're winning on all fronts. Like United have so many players who are out of contract, like who don't want to be there. Like Phil Jones, like great fella, but like been through an awful time the last few years. He's coming in to start, like, which is, you know, at Anfield, which is difficult enough. And certainly with the form Liverpool in. You look at Pogba, his contract situation, like Matic, it's another one. Like even Jesse Lingard, you think, like, he was on loan last year. He was fantastic. I thought he should have left Manchester United and, you know, gone permanently to West Ham, because it was just a great feel factor. And you even look at what West Ham are doing in the Europa League, that would have suited him better. It's just like Wan-Bissaka, he Dalit, I don't think they're good enough for Manchester United. You look at the, you know, the stalwarts of defenders they've had over the years. Like even Rangnick, you know, I listened to him last night after the game, and he said we're 6 or 7 years away. Now he's obviously referring Liverpool when Jurgen took over and they finished 8th in the Premier League, and how he obviously built that momentum and he identified what he needed. But there's just so much dead wood at United. There really is. And whether or not Ten Hag is going to be announced the next couple of days, you've got to clear all them out. You need players that are fully focused, fully committed, want to buy into the plan, and then they've got to be able to sign players who are going to be able to come in and obviously impact the team and take them back to where they want to be. And the hardest thing for them is nowadays to sign players. You look at the prices of these. You know, it's extortionate. The Glazers aren't renowned. Well, I suppose they are. But for throwing money away, but it's going to cost like 300, 400, 500 million to be able to rebuild a kind of a Premier League winning squad. And that, I think it's going to take longer than 6 or 7 years.
Because there's nothing guaranteed about that 300 or 400 million as well, given the track record is the exact opposite.
They haven't been good at spending money. They spent money, but they've just been really bad at it.
Yeah, that's why, like, I kind of nearly needed to eat my words there, saying like the Glazers haven't thrown money in, because they have. United have, you know, forked out fortunes for players, which some have done all right, some have done okay, some have been awful. But look, Liverpool did it, and that would be the example I imagine they'll be looking at. That Liverpool were able to add little pieces over time. Obviously selling Coutinho, bringing in that money, and then signing Van Dijk and Alisson, which was huge. It was kind of like, and then you look at Diaz, the signing in January. You look at how good he's been.
Yeah, not bad. Like, it's incredible how quickly players are now, and also, so they signed Konate, and it felt like he's going to have to go straight into the team because there's injury doubts about any of the other centre backs than Van Dijk, and obviously he was coming back from his long-term injury, and now all of them have been fit basically ever since, and the squad depth that Liverpool have built is as good as anybody, and it feels like they're going to be able to see out the next month playing at this level. Like Salah, let's talk a little bit about Liverpool, because we're going to pick over the carcass of Manchester United with Andy Mitten in about 10 minutes. Salah's dip in form, where he was creating chance after chance after chance for his teammates, and also like hitting the arse of the goalkeeper or the thigh of the goalkeeper, and it would trickle the wrong side of the post. It never felt like he was actually out of form. It just felt like he's been a bit unlucky.
Yeah, and that's the standards he set for himself. You kind of go into every game where you're watching Liverpool thinking, well, Salah's going to score. Like, that's like his goal charts for Liverpool are off the scale over the last probably 3 seasons, where his return is phenomenal. So any game, any kind of run of games where he's not scored, it kind of looks like, oh my God, Salah's going through this blip. There was a case probably of about 180 minutes where he did look like he had a bit of burnout. Jurgen mentioned it. It's probably the hangover from January in the African Cup of Nations, obviously playing all those games. Obviously that would have taken its toll on him. You look at him, he's probably the only one in the front three that's never really rested. He seems to play every game. I know, like, obviously Jurgen rested him in the Champions League second leg, but he's kind of the one that always seems to play out of the front three. So it was never a case of he wasn't getting chances. Yes, he was missing them. It was only a matter of time before he came back in, and you look at the intensity that the front three played at last night, all scoring, all assisting one another. Like, as you said there, Liverpool's squad depth is like, it's the best Liverpool squad I remember. Yes, of course, you could add a couple of greats from the past dot them in and around it, but they've got 5-6 midfielders to choose from. They've got 5 forwards to choose from. There's multiple choices at centre half. The only area that you'd probably question is the fullbacks. There would be a drop off, but even young Quiveen looks so comfortable. If he was to step in for Alisson, it's an exciting time to be a Liverpool fan, and they're battling on all 4 fronts to win, to try and go and win a quadruple.
Are you surprised at how good Mane has looked through the middle?
Yeah, because it's a totally different position. Obviously, when he signed for Liverpool, he played wide right. Then obviously Salah came, he moved over wide left. Playing through the middle is a lot different because you're usually the one that has to take the ball on defeat, and you've got to be able to hold it up and link the play. He's always been very good, and he's had a great relationship with Andy Robertson, being able to do that. But you've only got like one defender coming up your backside, whereas when you play as a 9, you're taking it either centre half can come with you, and the 6 is inevitably coming back to back tackle. But he's been able to deal with it. It's just they just play with so much joy, and you can see the smiles on their faces, the speed, the intensity that they play at. That, you always encourage kids and whatever to have fun when they're playing. They look like they're having fun. They look like it's easy for them. And that even goes back to the FA Cup tie against City. They just look like they're enjoying it.
That last night's their best 11, isn't it?
That's what I was going to say. It feels that way.
Look, I've been called biased or whatever. I would say it is. Yes. Jota would be hard done by. I'll give him that. Obviously, I do love Bobby Firmino, but Bobby, I think, would be the first to understand that the way these front three are playing at the moment. I suppose the big one that a lot of Liverpool fans would have would be, could Jordan Henderson be replaced by a Naby Keita or someone like that? Which is the best midfield 3? I certainly feel that 11 last night that played is Liverpool's best 11 at the moment.
Because we were having that conversation with Mark Lawrence yesterday, and he was definitely of that opinion too, that Henderson coming in would be the best midfield. Like, there has obviously been a lot of love for that NFT midfield when you've got Fabinho and Thiago alongside Naby Keita. So what did you see differently from that midfield last night compared to the one that started the the Benfica game and the second Manchester City game?
I don't. You see, you have to understand what roles are in a particular team. Like, if you look at Liverpool's midfield three that started last night, and if you compare them to Manchester City's midfield three or even United's midfield, they're different roles and responsibilities. Like if you looked at the Man City first game, there was a way. Like I know Jordan was asked to press higher. A lot of people then, like you can obviously highlight and criticise different parts of him being on the ball or whatever when he turns over possession. I get that, I understand that. But you have to understand your role inside that, 11, what is required from the manager. That's from one person. It's not what other people want to see happening in them at midfield. Like what makes Henderson tick so well is he allows Trent and Salah to kind of go and attack with freedom. Now, Trent has improved enormously over the last 18 months defensively. You've seen that last night when Rashford, took off, how he dealt with him. There was times when Sancho got back and dealt with him. But Henderson allows them to, get forward, and he's always been there to kind of cover around and support. He does a lot of dirty work that nobody really recognises. And that's why he is so pivotal to Jurgen's system, because, Fabinho is going to sit there in front of the centre-halves. He's going to create that three. And the other midfielders don't have that discipline. Like I'm saying, the ones obviously that played in the FA Cup, they don't have the legs he has. They don't have the discipline he has. You see Naby Keita last night. He's a very good player, but he gets himself into different positions going forward. I think Jurgen has it. Jurgen has 5 or 6 midfielders. They're all slightly different, but they understand their roles. And then that's why he tweaks and changes them for certain games.
So in the first Manchester City game, Henderson was pressing a bit more, you say. Why was that, and how does that differ from his usual pressing game?
No, but if you looked at the game, if you looked at the opening 45 minutes, like Liverpool couldn't get near Manchester City. Their press was all over the place. And then you looked at Man City's press and they were able to get the ball off Liverpool in great positions. But you could see from the start of the second half that Henderson was a lot higher. He was nearly more advanced. But that in order is to drag the team up with you. But that's obviously something, like I don't know the in-depth conversation they had at half-time, but they'd have gone through things that they obviously want to be the trigger point, and you could see that from him. Like, he'd kind of given everything for about 75, 80 minutes. That's why he comes off in those certain games, is because he's going at 100%. Look, we could be here all day talking about United and their character, and they don't work hard enough. And that's certainly not the case with your Liverpools and your Man Cities, because those players give you everything. Albeit City keep the ball a lot better than anyone else in the world. They don't have to work as hard, but certainly with Liverpool in that game in particular, I just spoke about those midfielders in Liverpool were pressing higher because they were told. Because you could see it, because in the first half they sat that little bit deeper and they left the front three press.
It feels like I had a little bit of, I don't know, just a concern that maybe last night was going to be a bit of a trap game for Liverpool, and we talked about that on the show yesterday with Mark Lawrence, and he's like, yeah, it's possible, but Klopp made all the right noises and picked his best team, and so I think you can see how they can catapult now forward for the rest of the year. Mark Lawrence was making the point that for Liverpool, winning the league in front of their own fans would actually be something that they would prefer. If you had to order it, in his mind, he was like, we want to win the league. We want to win the league in front of our own fans. It's been such a long time. It actually feels more likely that they're going to win the Champions League than the league at this stage. But last night's performance will certainly have given Manchester City cause for just a little bit of doubt. What do you think is most likely as an outcome in terms of trophies that Liverpool finish with at the end of the season at this point?
So obviously they won the League Cup. I think they'll beat Chelsea in the FA Cup. I think that's the only trophy Jurgen hasn't won. So I think they'll win that. I think they'll win the FA Cup. It's hard for me to say. Deep down, it's like my heart says Liverpool will win the Premier League. But my head says City will win it. I think both teams will win all their remaining games. I just think that the pressure between them, I think they'll push one another, and they are pushing one another. But if you go back a few years ago, Manchester City were able to hold Liverpool off, when they won the league title. What was it, 98 points, 97 points or something by that point. I think that will stand them in good stead. So I think they'll both win all their remaining games. I hope I'm wrong. I hope City do drop points, but that's what I do feel. And I think Liverpool will win the Champions League. I think City will come unstuck against Real Madrid. I think City will overthink it, or Pep will overthink it, and they'll get something wrong. And I think Liverpool will, they'll they'll get through Villarreal by hook or by crook. I think it'll be difficult for them, but I think they'll get the job done. I think it'll be Liverpool-Madrid final.
They kind of owe Real Madrid as well after the Karius game.
Nah, you don't. Different times, different teams. Of course, look, you still have a chunk of Liverpools, but you know, you don't have the Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema, you know, that old Zidane as manager, all that. They don't have, like Real Madrid don't have that. It's slightly different with Real Madrid, you know.
And would you be happy with that?
I would.
Yeah. So I think
yeah, of course.
I think that like if they don't win the league, I understand the whole point of winning it in front of your own fans. But actually, if they were to do a second Champions League, they automatically become a great team. Like they're already a great team, right? But like if they don't win anymore, they'll be like Armagh, who only won one All Ireland. They're considered a great team, but there's always a little bit of an asterisk where it's like if they actually were to win a second Champions League, it's automatically one of the all-time great teams. Like better than the Man United 99 team, better than the Manchester United Rio and Rooney team, because we won 2 Champions Leagues in 3.5-4 years.
Well, you're going into tricky waters there now. Even as me as a Liverpool fan, like
didn't do two with the same team.
Yeah, no, I get that, but then they both did stack 3 Premier League titles in a row each. You've got to give them that. Like it opens the waters into great debates. I'll give you that, right? Yeah. But like the 99 team is better than the away team.
Do you get a star for a league on your jersey? You don't. You only get a star on your jersey for winning the European Cup. Because those gold stars, lads, we have 2 in 3 seasons. Show me your league medals, grand. Yeah. And how many times do you win the Champions League? Oh, once. Okay, yeah. It's like.
But that is the big thing on Fergie's reign, isn't it? That's the kind of as you said there, the asterisk against him is these 2 European Cups. You know, obviously in 99 and 08. I think for 26 years, and they were battling on a lot of fronts. Okay, look, they lost Barcelona in those finals, but kind of one that kind of annoys United fans. They probably should have won more European Cups, certainly with the squad they had.
On that note, just when we thought you couldn't kick the Man United fans when they were down, you did it. Good man, David. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Cheers, gents. Cheers.
David Meyler, that was an excellent performance, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of like me bringing up Tyrone and the Naughties every time you're feeling that.
Well,
life is not good.
I'd like to hear the Armagh reaction to that. Team of underachievers is what you've been labelled as this morning. Get your views in, please.
087 918 180 is the WhatsApp number. Up next, we're going to run through the sports pages in the news with Will O'Callaghan. First, Vinnie Perth spoke with Stephen Doyle last night about Thiago's majesty in the aftermath of Liverpool's thrashing of Manchester United at Anfield.
We have to talk about Thiago and Andy Robertson, who kind of drove the team on different periods of the game. Thiago controlled that first half and he played, very well then the second half before he went off. And then it was almost like when he went off, then Robertson took up the responsibility of driving the team into the box. Two players that stood out tonight.
Yeah, Robson was brilliant for 2 of the goals, and he won't get all the plaudits for his performance tonight, but 2 of the goals where he was men against boys against him in Elanga, where he intercepted and put Liverpool on the front foot, as they say. But Thiago's performance, we all see the no-look passes, we all see the balls around the corner, and that's why they brought him to the club. When they play against really packed defences, they needed somebody different than Henderson and Wijnaldum at the time, or Fabinho, just to open up doors and little pockets. But he showed more than that tonight, and the best compliment I can give him is Fabinho was non-existent in the game. He didn't need to play because Thiago was that good. Blocks in front of the second half in that early stage, he's made 2 sensational blocks from a defensive point of view, but his passing range and what a nightmare he'd be to play against. Could you imagine him in the local 5-a-side? He'd drive you demented, the way he'd bounce the ball around. So he's just a brilliant footballer, very much the old school street footballer. And he's added a new dimension to that Liverpool team, and you've got to keep him fit. He picks up a lot of niggles, but he's been fit for the last little while, and I think if his form stays the way it is, Liverpool are on for a really exciting run.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that. No.
Newspaper headlines, we can start with OTBSports.com. I felt he got everything wrong. Finny Perth on Ralph Rangnick. Yeah, he wasn't sparing of the whip when it came to Rangnick's tactical acumen either. It was anger earlier in the season. Now it's just sadness. Roy Keane, we'll bring you that in a couple of minutes' time. Quad. Reds go top as they hit 4 in chase for all 4. Awful. Neville hits out. Brands United, a waste of space. That's the back page of the Sun. It's got nought to do with me. Fury hits back at Kinahan Fight Links. Tyson Fury, really interesting interview with Sky Sports, where he was like, I'm never going to talk to Sky Sports again, after some fairly straightforward questions that needed to be asked and were asked repeatedly, where Tyson Fury was like, this has nothing to do with me. How Bob Arum spends his money, if he was to go and spend that on gummy bears, it would be nothing to do with me. Actually, it was your money, because it was money that you should have got because you were fighting, but it ended up going to your advisor, Daniel Kinahan. So now sing the blues. Thomas Tuchel told Chelsea supporters to pump up the volume tonight as they get the opportunity to not give a sucker an even break. We haven't even talked about Arsenal.
Tonight's the night where it all turns around for them.
Back of the net, Klopp's quad squad thumps awful United and runaway win. Give New Cup all support that it needs, is Kevin McStay talking about the Tailteann Cup. And Kinahan pick doesn't make me a criminal. That's Tyson Fury and Daniel Kinahan in Dubai. Was that just in February? Just as recently as February? So, and then Quad Squad, it's the same headline on the back of the Mirror. Orchard Trio free to play. That's the big breaking GAA news this weekend. A massive boost to Armagh and their possibility of victory over the course of the weekend. I just can't find the front of the Examiner for you there, but it's Mo Salah scoring the 4th. When your luck is in, your luck is in. The ball loops up off Wan-Bissaka. Would it have gone in anyway? I don't know. Maybe De Gea saves it, maybe he doesn't. But it's like the perfect finish. Salah was definitely trying to do that anyway, but it certainly gets helped on its way to nestle on the back of the net and make it the right score.
He was fuming at the end as well. He didn't get his opportunity to get his name on the scoreboard for their 5th goal at the very end.
Mayo won't be caught waiting for the summer. This is Darragh O'Shea with a good piece in the Irish Times today, making the point that people throw all sorts of nonsense at Aidan O'Shea. Never mind Galway, Kerry would take him in a heartbeat. And then it's almost Salah all the time in the rest of the papers as well this morning. So that is where we are with that. I think we have Will O'Callaghan with us, do we? Yeah, Will, good morning to you. How are you?
Good. How you getting on, lads?
What's going on?
Yeah, well, look, obviously huge fallout from Manchester United against Liverpool last evening. Ralph Rangnick, the United boss, saying that they were embarrassed by Liverpool, admitting there's a gulf possibly even of 6 years between the teams with their development. And intriguing to hear him say that when Rangnick could technically be staying on as football director next year, and it looks like Erik ten Hag is going to be coming into the club. So he thought initially 3 windows might be enough to turn it around, but the feeling is they're perhaps further behind Liverpool than he had anticipated. Beaten 9-0 in a cumulative score across the 2 fixtures in the Premier League this season. United's chances of qualifying for the Champions League taking a blow with that 4-0 defeat at Anfield as well. 2 of the goals coming from Mo Salah as the Reds went top of the Premier League. Luis Diaz and Sadio Mane also on target. But Man City can return to the summit if they beat Brighton tonight. Salah's brace also ended a run of 8 games without a goal for the Egyptian forward. And United legend Roy Keane, who of course, as you mentioned, quoted extensively across the newspapers this morning, said his old side lacked both heart and leaders.
You just felt Liverpool could score anytime they went forward. There's disarray at the club from the top, from the board. Fans have no time for the owners. They need a new manager. They need players in. They need players out. It's so sad to see United. It's not the club I played for. It doesn't reflect what Man United stood for when I played for. It's chalk and cheese. I don't see a Man United team out there fighting, playing with pride.
Fellow former Manchester United captain Gary Neville, also on the Sky Sports coverage last night, he believes United are now at the lowest ebb of his lifetime.
I have no idea. I cannot explain how it's gone from what would be sort of slightly promising at the end of last season, finishing second. I know they lost in the Europa League final, which was a bad one, to the point where we are today, which is an all-time low in my 42 years of watching United. I've never seen it as bad as that. I've never seen it. You made a point before. Liverpool, when we were playing, weren't that great. But I don't think they ever gave us a game like that. It was always tough.
It was interesting, lads, watching the coverage last night that there was so little made of Liverpool's excellent performance for the best part. All right, they were, a little bit playing within themselves probably for the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, and they were adjusting to United going back to their more regular system from the 5 at the back. But pretty much the entire hour and 15 minutes of the coverage last night was entirely about how terrible Manchester United were rather than Liverpool. I'm sure Liverpool are delighted to be able to sit back and watch their rivals being taken apart by the pundits, and Liverpool just kind of quietly go top of the league.
Yeah.
It's what we want to see, though, Will, isn't it?
It was entertaining. I mean, like the minute they were coming off that break, you can hear Sky had kind of superimposed the fans who were leaving the stadium over Roy Keane's first initial comments. And like the minute that Roy Keane was saying, "This is not the club I played for," you know exactly what type of entertainment you're going to get for the next hour. And then they bring Carragher and Neville up to studio to just supplement things with Souness and Keane. And like Gary Neville sounded a broken man. Like he was a broken man before the game even finished. You can probably argue the toss over whether for a neutral it's exciting to have Neville and Carragher on commentary with Martin Tyler, or whether it becomes a bit annoying to have two guys who are so vocally behind their teams doing the analysis. Would you be better off with one neutral? Maybe?
No, I don't think so. I think that this whole objectivity, it's a sports match where you've got two excellent pundits analysing a sports match where their teams happen to be involved, and we know in advance what their biases are. It's not like there's the pretense of all those people who are like, oh, I don't follow anybody, I follow football. You're just lying to us. You're like, there's loads of people who actually, if you know where the people are coming from and they are the best at their jobs, then that's fine.
And like, to be fair, something that was really entertaining last night, if it wasn't Liverpool ripping through the United defence in the first half, it was Neville in between the moments when there were missed passes by Manchester United defenders and when, you know, people were being caught out of shape. And it was pretty remarkably poor how, if this was meant to look good on the training ground all week, which is what Ragnick said when he was asked about the five at the back, because like, understandably in attack they had to make changes, and it was very unfortunate for them, you know, the very tragic passing of Cristiano Ronaldo's baby, which meant that he couldn't play, so they had to switch around, and Cavani's injured at the moment, and then Pogba goes off injured. But defensively, he said the five at the back was working quite well. You look at a still, and I know Shane Keegan had one up on Twitter last night, of United's defensive shape for the Sadio Mane pass for the first goal. Maguire is about 3 yards behind Lindelof. Lindelof is not in line with Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. It was almost like a three shape as opposed to a straight line. George Graham once upon a time used to tie ropes literally to the Arsenal back four to make sure they were in exactly the right position and never stepped out of shape. United left the worst offensive trap you will ever see trying to play offside.
It was lucky they were against such three turnips as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All playing so badly.
Mo Salah's not having the best of times. You know, 8 games without run.
Mane's finish for the third goal is unbelievable. Like
nonchalant.
No breaking of strides, left foot, bottom, inside, side netting. You're like, wow, look at that. Like, very high level that they're playing at.
Who would have thought as well, lads, we would get to a point when the three players were so key to Liverpool, the first Champions League they won under Klopp, and also even in the league campaign a couple of years ago, that was almost set in stone that it was going to be Firmino, Salah and Mane, and the three complemented each other so well. Well, last night Luis Diaz set up one goal, Mane set up a couple, and Salah got an assist too. They appear now to be the front three, but you look at how well Diogo Jota played in the first half of the season before Diaz was signed. Jota's now fourth choice, and Roberto Firmino, who was seen as so key as a false nine in that system, is now gone back to fifth choice.
I was looking at the top scorer chart. Salah is 5 clear at the top at the moment. He's got 22 in the league. Son is second on 17, and third is Diogo Jota and Cristiano Ronaldo, both on 15 goals. So, like, you know, the third most prolific striker in the Premier League is your first sub. It's not a bad scenario that they find themselves in, and he's going to get loads of game time. He'll probably start against Everton at the weekend. Might start one of the games against Villarreal. You wouldn't be terribly surprised about that either. So things are all coming up Liverpool at the moment.
Yeah, they're good options to have, and the fact as well that Jota is versatile, that he can play as a number 9, or he can technically play it in the wings. Luis Diaz can play from the left hand side, or he can play through the middle.
And he's only getting
options. Yeah. And you know, you think the Canade signing went really well as well, Ger. Like, Liverpool have now strengthened the two positions which we thought were going to be very difficult to actually reinforce.
Yeah, and their midfield gets better and better and better as players come back from injury and start getting some game time too. So, Will, good stuff. Thanks a million for that.
Cheers, lads.
It's Will O'Callaghan there. It's 8:49. Andy Mitten is with us. Andy, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How do you think I am?
I don't know. Are you angry? So we were talking earlier on. The 7 stages of grief is this kind of well-worn path. It seemed like Roy Keane to move beyond that to a new 8th phase, which we don't even know how to talk about it. He's new territory, uncharted waters.
Yeah, I tweeted before the game yesterday that I'd never felt less optimistic going to Anfield ahead of a Liverpool United game since 1990, and a game which Liverpool won 4-0. United didn't actually play badly in that 4-0 defeat in September 1990. And I think what most United fans took that day was that the away end was loud. I can't even take either of those positives from last night. United played atrociously, and a large number of Manchester United fans left the game before the end. It was a sorry, sad evening in the history of Manchester United. It wasn't entirely unexpected. The team have been as bad as Liverpool have been good, and any idea of a new untried formation coming off went after 4 or 5 minutes when Liverpool scored and went ahead and never looked back. The first 20 minutes was awful for Manchester United. Asking players to play in that untried formation was a big ask. It didn't come off. The players didn't play well. And there's a lot of disappointment around that ground last night. And again, it wasn't a surprise. Liverpool won 5-0 at Old Trafford earlier on in the season. They've got an exceptional team. They could win the league, they could win the cup, they could win 2 cups, they could win 3 cups. So it goes from bad to worse for Manchester United, who will appoint a new manager imminently. And there will be some optimism around that because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't working. Ralf Rangnick has not worked. And new signings will come in the summer, but United are so far behind the leading teams at the moment that I think patience will be required. And all this is played under a cloud of the Glazer ownership, which continues to be very unpopular among Manchester United fans. That's why you saw protests at the weekend before the Norwich City game. And the games are played by a team with one of the highest wage bills in world football. So the players are failing. A lot of it is on them as well. And on the managers. And somehow Manchester United are in a fight for top 4. This team looks so far off the elite level at the moment. There were some mitigating factors. A lot of players were missing, be it on compassionate grounds, but because of injury. Some of them were always missing. Some of them were always missing on the pitch. And it was a bad night. Going back to Manchester after the game, the motorway was closed at one point, and he's just thinking, can this get any worse? So it was. I remember coming back from Anfield in 1992, again on a coach. Liverpool had effectively stopped United winning the league, and thinking it can't get worse than this. And within a year, Manchester United were champions again for the first time in 26 years. But that United team was ascendant, missed out on the league that year in 1992. Liverpool were in decline. It's nothing like that now. United are all over the place at the moment.
And to put a figure on it, Rangnick went with 6 years at least to catch up to Liverpool. So over the course of that 6-year plan, assuming it starts in August, how many of last night's players who played, started, who came on, would you like to see kicking off that 6-year plan?
Well, he's not implementing that 6-year plan. That's just his estimation. I don't have everything that he says and take it literally. He knows far more about football than I do. I expected him to be a lot better as a manager than he had been. I've been very disappointed with Ralf Rangnick's interim term as Manchester United manager. But the general point that Manchester United need a lot of change is definitely true. But it's always true. Every single manager comes in and says exactly the same thing. Get rid of the deadwood, bring in the new players, cultural reboot from the side of the club. This is a cycle which didn't start and end last night. And this is a cycle which has been happening since 2013. But from the evidence that we're seeing, you'd think that very, very few of them have got a future at Manchester United. The reality is you cannot change a team immediately. The majority will be at Manchester United next season. But I think if you're losing 3, 4, 5 of those players this summer, or players who are in the squad, some of them are out of contract, some of them are going to be let go, some of them have chosen not to stay, and then bringing in new players, signing new players, a factor of which will be if Manchester United play Champions League football next year, maybe promoting 1 or 2. Bring James Garner back on loan from Nottingham Forest. He's a promising young player, but I won't be expecting any miracles next season.
It is a long, slow, steady climb from here. It can only be a climb, though, if everybody at the club is aligned behind what they're trying to achieve, and there's no more random signings of big names or players who are suddenly available. And it also can only be achieved if the dressing room is harmonious. And I'm just not sure that there's been that understanding in the past, where players came in on big wages that seem to upset what the equilibrium of a dressing room should be, where you were getting rewarded for any kind of run of form with a new contract, and then the players were on such big contracts that the only way to get rid of them was to sell them, and then nobody would sign them because they were on such big contracts. And it's this vicious circle that, like, this isn't after timing. There's Manchester United fans I know who, when Alexis Sanchez was getting his big deal, was like, this isn't really the way that you run a football club in the long term, because it means that everybody expects to be paid the same, and he has to be an absolute global superstar to justify the salary. But then all the young players benchmark themselves against him, and so the wage inflation in the dressing room is crazy, and all of a sudden your sub goalkeeper's on 125 grand a week, and it's like, what happened here?
Yeah, and the rest. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, every single one of those signings was cheered in by the fans, including me for most of them. So the fans are falling for this hook, line and sinker. I remember when Alexis Sanchez signed for Manchester United, fans hope that these players will give a glimpse of a brighter future. That doesn't happen. The recruitment has been atrocious. The approach has been scattergun. Names have been coming in, and you sort of wonder, with the benefit of hindsight, why Bayern Munich let Bastian Schweinsteiger go, because they knew that he wasn't as key to them as he had been. And United shouldn't be somewhere where big name players go and pick up their final big name salary, and that's what's happened. And there's always two sides to this. A year ago, Edinson Cavani, who's one of those players, was playing well and scoring well. He's barely been available this season. This season has been a complete flop for him. I don't think he wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be injured, I don't want to play football. I just don't believe that. But United are signing players who are getting injured. Maybe that's because they're too old. And when you can't select 4 or 5 of your better players, and there are, of course, other circumstances, Mason Greenwood's circumstances have been well documented as to why he can't play. It just all adds up to a very sorry season for Manchester United. You talked about unity. There isn't any unity among the fans. The fans hate each other. There isn't unity in the dressing room either. You're getting briefs, leaks, counter briefs, counter leaks, and this is something that the new manager has got to try and get to grip with in a culture which will be alien for him. He's got an extremely difficult job. Any human would have an extremely difficult job. So while Ten Hag's arrival will be greeted with optimism, like every arrival is greeted with optimism, I don't think he alone is a panacea. You've got issues with the ownership, which remain very unpopular with fans. The recruitment, there'll be more changes. Absolutely, there will be more changes at United. The best case scenario is that the bar is so low at the moment, United can't get any worse. Well, they could go down. That's happened before. And with those very talented, technically good players, United are able to overcome a Norwich City at Old Trafford, because you've got Cristiano Ronaldo, who's got the ability to do that. But the team lacks complete coherent structure, identifiable style of play. When you watch Liverpool, you see that this is Jurgen Klopp's team. You say the same about Pep Guardiola. You say the same about Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. When you watch Manchester United, you absolutely cannot say that. Ralph Rangnick came in for the first hour against Crystal Palace. Okay, this is different. This is what he's trying to do. And then that went by the wayside, as so often the best intentions do with Manchester United.
You say that the fans hate each other. How do you mean? What's the sticking points at the moment?
Manchester United's fan base is thousands of groups of mates who all think they're right, and they find consensus among themselves. But the demographic is so wide that what works for one set of mates is very, very different than what works for another set of friends. So you've got the match-going fans, and there are big divisions there. You've got the global fan base. You've got fans who are addicted to transfers. Most of them are young. Most of them are online, don't go to matches. You've got fans who think you have to protest. You've got fans who go to the game who think who are people who don't go to the games telling me what I should or should not be doing. So it's a very fractured fan base, and victories cover a lot of sins on behalf of the owners. And when the team are losing and playing badly like they are now, all the tension rises to the top. Online, it's completely toxic. The quickest way to a click is hatred, and that's exploited by some fans in terms of inflaming tensions, the anonymity online. That only adds to the toxicity online as well. And I can remember 2012-13, United drawing a game and fans being furious in a season when the team won the league. You can imagine what it's like now when the team are losing regularly, going out of all the cup competitions at Old Trafford. So actually, when you go to matches, the atmosphere's all right. The fans are still pretty supportive. In the real world, online, it is a complete mess, and the fans are at each other's throat.
This is the mood music which greets the arrival of the new manager. A comment in from Dahi O'Shaughnessy. He says, the importance of Michael Edwards in superbly managing transfers at Liverpool has been pivotal to their success. United's transfer management has been a catastrophe. They need an equivalent to Edwards. So the people who appointed the new manager are, we think, heavily involved in the recruitment, and he will have an influence in the recruitment. So it's not a million miles away from the Liverpool model, or is it? What do you know about that, and how will that work?
I saw a line in the last couple of days that Erik ten Hag will have the final say on who comes in, and that he's this all-conquering human who will actually spearhead recruitment from that respect. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had the final say. The manager at Manchester United always has the final say. But the point about recruitment is true. Too many of the players who come into Manchester United have failed, hasn't worked. Huge amounts have been spent. United, as you said earlier, end up with players who earn so much money that no rival clubs can afford to take them. So they end up stockpiling players who are at the top of the wage tree, if not the success tree. And it's very difficult to get rid of them unless you pay a huge percentage of their wages to get rid of them and to move them on from Manchester United. The recruitment has got to be smarter, rather than those aging names, those big names with a cynical, sceptical view, names who are going to sell shirts. United should be signing players who win football matches and win trophies when the collective is big enough. And Nemanja Vidic said to me a couple of weeks ago, it's too much about the individual at the moment. There's not enough about the collective, the great team spirit which he had when he played for a long time. And some of those Liverpool players, I remember when Liverpool signed Virgil van Dijk and laughing because he'd spent so much on a Southampton defender. Liverpool were right, I was wrong. And they've done that several times. They brought players in who've done really, really well for Liverpool. I think you've got to look at Liverpool's model as being an example now for Manchester United, because United are not state-funded. They don't have an oligarch putting money in, or used to put money in. United self-generate their own money. Yes, the club are hindered with the debts that have been put onto the club by the Glazers in that highly leveraged buyout. But United have still spent a lot of money on players, far more than Liverpool. But look at the success of the two teams. Klopp is clearly a big part of it. He's got a very strong identity, both in the way that his teams play football, both in his old charisma. He's got a fan base that's really brought into him as well. And United just don't. So Erik ten Hag's got to come in. That's going to be really difficult for him. I've done a lot of research into him. I spoke to a lot of people in professional football in Holland about him. They speak really well of him as a coach. He's an exceptional coach. More issues around his communication skills. So he's going to need the charisma to lead the dressing room, but also to get the fans on side and to get everything working. And it's a huge, huge ask. And you're speaking to me now, I think at the lowest point, because I think things can only get better, but actually things can actually get worse.
Well, I think they will get better, because Rangnick is obviously and was clearly an interim manager. They said it when he arrived, despite the bit where, maybe they'll offer me the job. That never really rang true. And it looks like the players knew that from the start. So you would assume that a manager will come in and put some order on things. Plus, there's a group of those players who are actually out of contract, so he won't have to deal with that many disaffected players, and he'll have to give opportunity to some other players. You know, they won't re-sign Matic. Mata will be gone, Lingard will be gone, and a few others will go as well, automatically. And that if they just replace those with younger players who are a little bit hungrier, who are not paid as much, then and who do what the manager wants them to do, they'll have a style of play, they'll have a pre-season that should automatically reach them to the fringes of the top four and an identity. And that's the beginning of things, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's an idealised situation. And if you would have spoke to me at the end of November, the idealised situation would have been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's failing because he's not tactically proficient. And if you bring someone in, someone like Ralf Rangnick, who's a tactician, he can get a better chord out of these players. Football doesn't work like these idealised situations. Young players can come in and be completely daunted by Manchester United. We've seen that several times. Memphis Depay came in with a fantastic CV, didn't work out for him. There's been a lot of examples of that, or players needing time to settle. Jadon Sancho has improved, but he had a really bad first half of the season. But I take your point, and I am an optimist, and a manager who comes in and will actually have money to spend is not being asked to reach the European Cup final on a relative shoestring like Pochettino did at Tottenham, for example. The new manager will be able to sign players. The wage bill will remain very, very high. Old Trafford is still full every week, and fans are allowed back in to fill Old Trafford. So if a good, competent manager gets to grips with this, then United should absolutely improve. But I think it'll take time, and it will need patience from a fan base which is very patient inside the ground, online less so. The overreaction when Manchester United don't win a game is ridiculous. But United have courted this fan base. In many ways, you reap what you sow.
Well, let me put this to you, because that's come in from a comment on watching this morning from Michael, who says, United sold its soul when the Glazers took over. Year by year, its character and identity has been commodified and sold off for short-term profit. The brand manager and marketing department steers the ship. It's a viewpoint that's popular, but I'm not sure it's accurate. I think it's far more nuanced than that. It's just that they've had the wrong people in charge of football for too long, who didn't fully understand what they were trying to do. When David Gill left, they never replaced his talent in the executive side, and it's easy to trace it to the end of the Ferguson era, but equally there was nobody there who was like, well, what's best for the football that's going to generate the profit in the future? All those other departments are actually working really well. That if you just had somebody who knew what they were doing on the football side, no one would have too much of a problem with the fact that they were selling subscriptions and monetizing as much as they possibly could.
Yeah, many elements of the club are run well, especially compared to other clubs. And I don't just watch and cover Manchester United. I've seen Barcelona implode and sort of right themselves in quite a quick period of time. But Manchester United is a very different construct. You said the first point of the question was United sold their soul with the Glazers. The fans didn't sell the soul. The fans didn't want that takeover to go through. That was a highly leveraged buyout, which should never have been allowed to happen by the British government. And it was allowed to happen. And it shouldn't have been allowed to have happened. And it's happened at other clubs in British football, not to the same degree, not to the same level of audacity that the Glazers did. And that takeover remains hugely unpopular among United fans. But your other point is true. A lot of money has been spent, and been spent really badly. The fans certainly aren't looking for sponsors, but they don't have an issue with sponsorship if that means the money is going into bringing in top players. And I think that's actually true. The money which United generate commercially helps United have one of the biggest wage bills, which in theory should lead to success, and hasn't done. And the point about someone with a football brain, yeah, you're right. Although there's actually a lot of people there with really good football CVs working within the football side of the club. But I sense that it's too bloated at times. The structure is a mishmash of layers which have been added and added. by various managers, bringing in their own people and saying this guy's good, we should employ him. And that's not working either. So someone with the authority, the autonomy, like Michael Edwards had, fans would look at that and think, yeah, that's what we need at Manchester United. There are people with decision-making powers now. John Murtaugh's the director of football. Ralph Rangnick's appointment was on him. The next appointment will be on him as well. And he'll be judged by that. If Ten Hag comes in and is a failure, that will reflect badly on the man who gave him the job. Darren Fletcher interviewed the prospective managers, as he did with the interim managers as well. And again, that's on him too. He's a very bright lad. Criticism I hear is that these are people who are effectively learning on the job, and Manchester United should be bringing in best in class, more experienced people. And I take that point as well. We're looking for everything through such a negative prism at the moment because the results have been so bad and criticism is swirling around, and I understand why it is.
Yeah.
And it should be. I stood in that away end at Anfield last night. It was absolutely horrendous, and I expected it to be horrendous at Anfield last night. And to compound it all, United's two biggest rivals, City and Liverpool, are winning absolutely everything. Can't even believe I'm saying this sometimes when I say it, but that's where we are at the moment, and these are really grim times for United.
Well, thanks for sharing them with us this morning, Andy. I know it's never easy, but it's always great to talk to you, and hopefully at some point in the near future we'll get to talk to you after some big wins for you. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
That's Andy Mitten there. You can read his stuff in United We Stand, and of course in The Athletic and elsewhere as well. Here's more from Vinnie Perth alongside Stephen Doyle after last night's game, lamenting the fact that Manchester United's players simply lacked effort against Liverpool.
And just on the players, if you're Rangnick looking at their performance tonight, we did see some running from them, but overall, are you kind of looking at those players thinking, you're not giving me 100% here?
Yeah, as a manager, you're down. There should be no need for team talks in nights like Liverpool against Manchester United. As I said, it's one of the most famous games in the history of football. It was just a lack of effort. Yes, the manager set the players up wrong, has to take responsibility for that, but just Jesse Lingard, outstanding player, West Ham, came on early, got a chance, just didn't try a leg. Rashford was completely isolated. I would have some sympathy for him, but again, he's got to do better. And Jordan Sancho came on, and just his execution, a couple of crosses just weren't good enough. And then you've got to say people like Matic isn't good enough anymore. So you would really fear for that team. Dalot had one of the worst. He had the proverbial mare there tonight. He was shocking. So yes, injuries haven't helped, but that dressing room need to have a long hard look at themselves, and Liverpool was so comfortable.
Yeah, I think if you go back and look at the Liverpool team the day that they played their first game under Klopp, Mignolet, Klein, Skirtle, Sacco, Moreno, Leiva, Chan, Lallana, Coutinho, Milner and Origi. Obviously Origi and Milner are still there, but other than that, I'm fairly sure Henderson was unavailable, not fit or whatever, but it's possible that you can turn things around relatively quickly. So here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is the Wexford 1956 team with Ned Wheeler and Art Foley. Coigig is Courtney Brosnan. At 3 o'clock our retro panel is Tyrone GAA's Golden Days. That's one that Owen will certainly be tuned in for, learning about how they were the best team of the decade. And then OTB Gold your mic is down for some reason. OTB Gold at 6 o'clock is Colin Gooch Cooper. We're back after these with Sarah Donovan and Cork GAA. First, fresh from one of the most assured goalkeeping performances in an Ireland jersey in recent memory, Courtney Brosnan joined Kathleen and Karen on the Coigig pod. With only one spot on the pitch, the main struggle for most goalies is just getting on the pitch, something Brosnan has struggled a bit in recent times with. But for her, it's just about making do with what comes.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
He's a lion, he's a Grand Slam winner, he's Ireland's leading try scorer, and now you can hear him first, exclusively on the OTB Sports app.
One of my abiding memories is having my cut opened up again as I got hit by the trophy in coppers on the dance floor.
Join Brian O'Driscoll for the best insight and analysis this rugby season.
We haven't had the usual kind of grenades from Gats, that's gone, so we're creating them ourselves.
Get the jump on everyone else. Download the OTB Sports app and turn on notifications now.
There's not as many opportunities, I suppose, for you to say, look, I made this mistake, but here's what I can do.
Yeah, first of all, I think we just have such a great group of goalkeepers. So I think coming into camp, it's absolutely amazing to get to work with, obviously, Grace and Megan and Eve. So I think it's a really healthy and competitive environment where we're pushing each other, obviously, and then we want each other to kind of succeed. And then I think it's sort of obviously just kind of having that inner belief in yourself and knowing kind of what you're capable of. And as you said, if the game time's maybe not coming, still saying, okay, I know what I can do. And then when those opportunities come, kind of being able to show that, I think is really important. And obviously you just try to focus on the tasks at hand and see what you can do.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance plc.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Okay, so that was Ireland and Everton goalkeeper Courtney Brosnan on this week's Koi Gig Pod. You can get the full thing, which includes a full breakdown of the weekend's FA Cup semi-finals in all your usual podcast places right now. The Koi Gig Pod on OTB Sports is in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. James Carew has been in touch to say, in one way, it's sad to see how United, a once great club, have fallen so far, and in another, it's absolutely hilarious. That's definitely one of the themes of the morning. Sarah Dunham, good morning to you. I didn't realise you were a Man United fan as well.
Roy Keane, Dennis Irwin in their heyday.
Of course,
Cork woman, you know, holding on for dear life to those memories.
So it's gone great for you at the moment, isn't it?
Cork and United, I know. What did they say? Roy is just kind of resigned, and I think I am now as well after Sunday.
Are you? Is that the overriding sense? Is that this is a lost season?
No, it's not that it's a lost season, but I suppose when you have Limerick men sympathising with you, you know, at a match I was at yesterday, that says it all.
I'd say they enjoyed that, did they?
But they're not even sympathising with me because of the hurling aspect of it, because they know Cork are good hurlers, but it's the lack of fight, the lack of organisation, the lack of structure, the sense that it's the same old thing that we spoke about last September when I was on that fateful morning after Cork lost to Limerick.
It's that seems to be one of the big things, isn't it? There's a million different things that you could kick off with here, but that sense of individuals versus the collective. I think Owen Callaghan in the Examiner this morning has called them a bunch of individuals with no collective cohesiveness, I think is the quote from his piece, which seems to be one of the prevailing themes.
And Owen is kind of going out on a limb here because he's been part of that structure for 10, 15 years. It's going to be very hard for him to write that, but obviously his sense of frustration is coming through. And you wonder, was that his sense when he was in the setup as well, that he wanted things to be more cohesive? Because he's obviously played in an All-Ireland winning football team and he knows what it's like for the likes of the Cork footballers to galvanise themselves to win that All-Ireland 2010, and he probably doesn't feel that with the hurlers.
So what's wrong?
There's three things in hurling, lads. Hurling first, physicality and organisation. Cork have the hurling, they don't have the physicality, they certainly don't have the organisation.
They have a physicality, they have intense pace, right? They obviously the Limerick team is full of big men who could all have played rugby or could all have played Gaelic football. You know, like Gerard Hegarty's a beast, there's Kyle Hayes is a beast, and
Dermot Burns, as 6 points the last day. But I suppose from Dermot Burns' point of view, he was scoring his points from his position at half back. You know, the Cork lads weren't in a position to be able to do that kind of, I suppose, scoring the last day. My frustration is that the Limerick lads are able to hold their structure. Like, I think at one stage, you know, the Cork lads, I'd say everyone was outside the 45. Why do they all want to get forward? Why are they all driving forward when their first job is to defend?
Is that just like a sort of message to like manic aggression, manic passion, get forward, get on the ball, and there's no kind of thought to it?
That's what we're coming back to, is the structure. You're a defender first. I don't need to see Damien Cahalane bursting up the pitch. It's not his job. You know, the same with Sean O'Donoghue, the same with Niall O'Leary. It's not their job. Nor do I need to see Patrick Collins in the corner, you know, jostling with three Limerick players. That's not his job. His job is between the posts.
Are they told to do that though? Is it that actually they've decided that we're going to play this running game and our halfbacks are going to swarm forward and it's just it's not working for them? So the structure is there, it's the wrong structure, or the structure is breaking down, or there's no structure?
I don't think there's any structure. I think everyone wants to get forward. And I think it can be fixed. But these lads have to accept that their first job is to defend. And there's 8 guys ahead of them between midfield and the inside 6 who are capable of scorers. Like Cork scored 217 the last day. It's not that they can't score. The other part of it is you have incredibly physical or fast players in Shane Kingston, Jack O'Connor, Robbie O'Flynn. We didn't see any of them, build up ahead of steam, bar Kingston in that first 20 seconds. They're not allowed to brace out, win a ball, turn their man, because the ball isn't coming up quick enough. 6-8 passes to get the ball 20-30 yards, it's too slow.
What's causing the confusion? Is it that the style hasn't evolved, or the style hasn't been bedded in, or because there's been enough of a brains trust around that Cork team over the last couple of years for very smart people to have said this is what we're trying to do, but you don't think that's coming through at all in what you're seeing?
They haven't stood still. Like Kieran Kingston obviously last season brought in Pat Mulcahy. He brought in Noel Furlong. These are guys who are around hurling teams for a long, long time. It's not that they're not listening, but it just seems to be that the urgency in the players is to get forward, but they don't seem to want to be able to defend. Cathal Barrett the last day for tip, and he's running back, and he gets that interception against Mikey Kiley, that real lack of, I suppose, that real intensity that he has to drive back to make that challenge. The Waterford hurlers, Conor Prunty standing up, they're able to get players between the ball and the goal, whereas the Cork lads can't seem to get themselves between the player in opposition and the goal.
That's a really interesting kind of fall down in the system. It seems that obviously Donald Logue took to pieces really at half time in the game on Sunday. So how do you have a management team that, as Ger says, is very smart and has been working on this for the last couple of years, and that defensive system just doesn't seem to exist at a really, really important point? Is that just pure pressure getting to them, or is that maybe even lack of preparation?
I can't say it's lack of preparation. I can't say it's want. These lads are the ultimate professionals in terms of the skill set that they have as hurlers. But organisationally, I don't know how much they want to be able to get back. There's some really hard calls that have to be made when you're an inside backline and a goalkeeper. The amount of energy that it takes to draw your teammates back to stand alongside you. The Cork teams of old never, there was always 3 at the back. There was always Sean O, Kern, Gardner. There was a vivid back 6. We haven't seen that with Cork for the last 5-6 years.
You mentioned there that it's obviously very interesting to see what Owen Callaghan has to say, given he's so close to the team. What's interesting is that in that column as well this morning, he mentions that Cork forwards had 3 tackles in the All-Ireland final last year, and he mentions token efforts when it comes to running hard for possession, and he thinks that that's a theme that we saw last Sunday in Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well. There might be a little bit of a full-back union going on there, but if you want to read into that a little bit more, I mean, does that maybe point towards a little bit of kind of leftover angst regarding the efforts that his forwards are going through last season, and maybe that's a prevailing theme where up front, as you say, they see the jobs of the backs to get forward, but maybe the forwards also see their job as scoring and not really tracking back that much.
Yeah, and as a former forward, I'm going to go with the forwards here on this one. Your first job is to score, and your second job is to defend. Now, Ray Boyne will kill me because he'll say your first job is to work hard, and your second job is to score. But I think the forwards aren't being allowed to score, first of all, because ultimately the ball isn't coming in fast enough. So they spend all of their time having to work to kind of win the ball back. It should be a kind of 60-40 ball in favour of the forward all the time. And the Cork midfields and half-backs aren't giving the Cork forwards the advantage. So they spend all of their time on the back foot. They look lazy.
And do you think that the Limerick forwards would see their job as scoring first and defending second, for example?
I think the Limerick forwards are expecting a 60-40 ball first of all, right. and that's their first. That's the advantage that they have over the Cork lads at this stage. The Limerick lads make it look very easy because they kind of get to do a happy mix of both. They get some incredible ball. The distribution is outstanding, and then they can work off of that. They feed off each other. They're confidence players, but also their teammates are incredibly confident, and I just really enjoy watching the way they work together. But like Aaron Gillan was doing a pile of work on his own last year, but the ball that he was getting, the space that was being provided to him was incredible.
It does look like everything that they're doing is designed where the work that Cork are doing, whatever it is, isn't bearing fruit on the field of play, and that must be the most frustrating thing for the players, for the management as well. So What would make it not be a lost season at this point?
It's only one game. Like, I suppose Tipperary and Waterford the last day, 4-point win for Waterford. Everyone was buoyed by how good Tipperary were because they were expecting so little.
Yeah.
From Cork's point of view, they're constantly going into games expecting, or maybe it's our fault for expecting so much. Should they take the pressure off? Should they accept where they are? Should they accept that, the structure in there, they have to build it? Are we putting too much pressure on Cork?
Well, I don't know, because the throughput of talent that is coming, that we keep hearing about the Red Storm rising.
It's our fault.
Well, they do appear to have a bunch of really good hurlers. Like, I don't know if John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk were in charge of Cork, what would the result be at the moment? If Liam Cahill was in charge, what would the result be at the moment? Or do the players need to take more responsibility? Like, if Callaghan is saying this stuff now, was he saying that stuff? Did he feel free to say that stuff? Are they encouraged to be themselves? I don't know. Like, because we had Patrick Horgan on the show last week, the week before, and he was like, actually, we weren't overly concerned with the league final because we knew we'd done loads of stuff and we made loads of progress, and we'd learned from our experience in the All-Ireland final and we had built on it. But it didn't look that way at the weekend. Now, it's a bit closer in the All-Ireland final. It was more of a game, still a game at half time. Maybe that's progress. Maybe Limerick are going to do this to everybody, and at the end of the season we'll go, actually, you know what, that was okay at that point because Limerick did this. But at the moment, Clare licking their chops thinking, well, we don't have to go to Páirc Uí. This is perfect for us. Tipperary are going to be looking at Cork going, we need a win. Big red circle around that. Like, there's a possibility they don't make it out.
There's every possibility that they don't make it out because every other team has used the league to find a structure. Now, I was looking at the Clare league setup. They're probably the most, I suppose, unstructured in terms of us starting 15. I'm very impressed with Tipperary the last day. A quality full back line, really took it to Waterford, who are essentially the best team in the league. And Tipperary were able to stitch together a performance that allowed their fans to kind of take a breath of relief, heading out of the stadium saying, God, we could have a summer here yet.
Yeah.
I think that Clare could be a banana skin for Cork. But the Clare-Cork game, if you'll remember it in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the league, it was miserable because there wasn't that close contact that we saw in the Tip and Waterford game. There wasn't that physicality. They were zonally marking. There was massive amounts of space. I think it was 130 to 121 or something. Stupid scoring.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that in games, and Cork have to get away from the fact that they shouldn't be looking to hit 130 in a match. They should be looking to really tighten up their defending so that they can win games 217 to 210 or much better games, and they'll expend a lot less energy. If you score 130 but you concede 121, the energy output is too much.
And like, that definitely seems to be something that maybe Waterford have taken up this year as well, where it's like, if you've got any chance of winning this All-Ireland, we just got to score a heap of goals. Like, that's a very obvious point to make about how Limerick are going to be beaten this year. But you mentioned the physicality, and clearly the pace of Cork didn't harm them too much the weekend. Is there anything that you can see from this Limerick team, or anything that might be their kryptonite a little bit this year?
Do I think they can be stopped?
Yeah, or what is the most likely way that they can be stopped?
To be able to kind of draft in Mike Casey and then parachute Kyle Hayes into full forward, it's ridiculous. No other team, I don't think, can change their half back and make him a full forward and make him as effective. Should we look at then Tim O'Mahony being parachuted into full forward because he's the same type of physicality and he's the same kind of pace? But then who do we put wing back? We're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, you get the sense too that Limerick have tried this. Yeah, there's been a training period where they've done this again and again and again, and they know exactly, and everybody's pre-programmed to go, okay, when this happens, we're going to do this. With Cork, I'm not sure if they've been working on that or if it would be an immediate reaction. Sometimes those reactions work, like in sport, and that's not to say you shouldn't do it, but it would feel a little bit like going 5 at the back against Liverpool last night all of a sudden, because we did a few videos in training this week and suddenly it's like, oh, that didn't work.
Look, I suppose from Cork's point of view, I think fundamentally for the next 2 games they have to get a back 6, and if your back 6 is heading out past the 45, then you have issues. And the management have to explain to these guys, I don't want to see you go past the 45. That's not your job, because ultimately you want the guys like Robbie O'Flynn, you want Jack O'Connor, you want Darrell Fitzgibbon to have space. And if there's 6 guys running with them up the field, then they're taking 3-4 forwards from the opposition with them, and all of a sudden you've 20 lads in the middle 8. There's no space for these guys with pace to run forward. So it's no harm for the 6 defenders to stay back. We don't need them all up in the top of the field. You know,
They're just
it's
getting in the
madness.
way.
Yeah, they're getting in the way, lads.
Spoken like a true forward. Sarah, we had intended on talking about the quality of the camogie season and the general excitement around in the aftermath of the Cork Galway final, but that's all been overshadowed by the horrific events at the weekend where Kate Moran unfortunately passed away after an incident in the game. The full details haven't quite emerged yet, but it's so shocking. Here's an All-Ireland winner as a kid and played in All-Ireland finals and was just making her way in the sport. It's just a horrific incident.
I can't make sense of it. Like, you know, we had a match last night, a league match in Portmarnock, and we had a minute's silence for Kate. But to imagine, you know, a group of players get onto the field on Monday night and one of them doesn't come back into the dressing room, even as a group of girls last night, it was hard for us to comprehend that could happen. And it's such an innocuous thing, you know. It's a challenge on the pitch that it appears that it was literally, you know, a collision on the pitch, an accidental collision, and she's lost consciousness and she didn't regain consciousness, you know. And I think it's going to be a real struggle for those players in Galway to find sense to go back onto the pitch after that, and that's my worry as well.
Yeah, and it does seem churlish to do a championship preview in the aftermath of that. So we will talk about the championship season again at an appropriate time, but we'd obviously like to send our condolences to the Moran family and everybody involved. Like, it's a horrific story and, you know, massively concerning as well. So we just hopefully people find out exactly what happened and just trying to get to the bottom of it. And, you know, as I said, we send our condolences to everybody. So, Tara, thanks very much for joining us in studio this morning. It's 9:32 here. We're going to leave you with the latest episode of the Coigig Pod, where Kathleen McNamee, Karen Duggan and Emma Carroll were joined by a star of last week's brilliant result away to Sweden, Ireland goalkeeper Courtney Brosnan. You can catch all the latest OTB video across our social channels right now. Hit follow on all of our pages and be sure to download the OTB Sports app from your app store to catch the very latest sports content goodness. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Emma, once again, you've had slightly fewer screens to look at. I'm never sure if you actually enjoy the weekends or you have fewer screens or not, but with what was happening, you've put together something quite interesting. We didn't have any WSL this week, but we did have the FA Cup semi-finals. So we asked you to take one of the key matches, I suppose, that it has been across the entire season, and that has been Arsenal and Chelsea, and put together a combined 11. Could you run through who is on your team?
Yeah, I'll do it really quickly and then we'll kind of get into my made up formation. We went with Anne Katzenberger in goal, a back three of Eriksson, Bright and Williamson, and then a kind of diamond midfield with Little, McCabe, Cuthbert and Niedema, and then a front three of Harder, Kerr and Mead. And probably if the news hadn't have come out about Frank Kirby being out indefinitely, I think she probably would have went in there ahead of Mead. Yeah, when Kirby's fit and playing, she's one of the best players around. But considering that she's going to be out for the rest of the season, then yeah,
the competition for those top spots as well. Like, they're hard to fit them all in. When you look at it, you can see why both teams are top of the table.
I did laugh at Karen's face as you were reading it out. I'm like, is this face for the players Emma has selected or the formation she's gone with?
I actually can't argue with too many of them, but yeah, light at the back, we'll say.
Well, you know, you've got probably three of the best defenders there. And then, yeah, I think it can be a fluid formation if you need be. You know, you can pull McCabe back or even Cuthbert, or Cuthbert could move in tighter into a midfield as well. So
that's true. We have seen Cuthbert and McCabe both used as wing backs this season. I feel like Cuthbert's kind of been everywhere. So she's definitely worth her nod in any of positions. We couldn't really argue with whatever you did there.
I did have a few that I was like, I feel you're going to bring up your argument that they're on your bench, but I'm not accepting that. They're either on the team or they're not. And it was two that actually performed quite well at the weekend, and that was Ger and Eoin. Two players that I think sometimes aren't massively rated in the way that they should be. I know Eoin had a bit of a tough season last season between COVID isolation. I think hit her quite hard in terms of her performance on the pitch, but I think she's come back quite a lot this season. And then G as well, who's just so consistent that I think we sometimes forget about her a tiny bit.
Oh, she's so good. Yeah, she's brilliant. But yeah, there's so many, like when you think there's Blackstenius as well, like there's so many players there from the two teams that it's really stacked. But yeah, I think it was either Brighton or McCabe, and let's face it, we were never not going to have McCabe in there, so she got the nod there. And yeah, trying to fit. Well, I was probably trying to fit 3 players into that, but I ended up getting 4 of those attackers in with my my little diamond formation somehow.
Well, to be fair, that's where Miedema is kind of when on the team sheet for Arsenal these days, so we can't argue too much with that one. Harder makes the team, even though sometimes we've seen her kind of deployed off the bench, but isn't that, again, is just a testament to the stacked level of attack that Chelsea have had this season.
It was that you mentioned Harder, because Harder and Ericsson were 2 of the players that I picked out that I was like, they are so good, but I don't know if we've seen them at their best this season.
Yeah, probably not. But when I was trying to think of them all at their fighting fittest, best for the rest of the running of the season, and the fact that Ericsson and Harder seem to just be coming back from that injury, they could peak at just the right time to help Chelsea drive home. So yeah, and especially with the Kirby injury as well, you're probably going to see Harder coming back in now if she is fit. Emma Hayes doesn't really like to take risks either, and I feel she probably has the squad depth that she doesn't feel she needs to put these players in or rush them back into games when she has other players that will do just as well, like Fleming or GE or England can come into those positions. Carter as well for like Ericsson at the back and stuff. So she doesn't need to rush these players back, but they're coming back at just the right time for her, I think.
It's funny that you mentioned Carter, because that was actually one of the other players that I had on my list that I thought maybe could have gotten not in above Ericsson. I think like we've seen her play in so many different formations this season, like in so many different defensive positions. She has given Chelsea a real consistency that we haven't seen from her before. And obviously she doesn't have the international recognition of a player like Ericsson. And if Ericsson was fully fit, she probably would still be the consistent starter. But I think we've seen a real new side to her, and I've been quite impressed what she has done and what she's done with the opportunity she has been given. You know, there's very few times this season where Emma Hayes has played her in a certain position and she hasn't delivered. And she's very good at that one-on-one defensive quality that Emma Hayes is looking for. So especially at the weekend as well, I thought when she played with Bright, she was particularly good.
Yeah, and I think that could be an interesting partnership as well going into the summer as well for the Euros, because I think she's definitely laying down a play. Well, maybe not a place, but definitely putting some thoughts into Serena's head as well about who's going to start across that back line. And if you have a good partnership at club level, then it might be easier to transfer that into international level as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the form that Millie Bright is in, I think she was probably even one of the first names on the team sheet, whereas maybe she wouldn't have been this time last season, but her performances as of late, even starting playmaking at the back, I've been so impressed with her.
Some of her crosses and passing in the FA Cup there at the weekend was just sublime. It was amazing. We talk about Williamson's ability to do that, but I think Bright probably even was better at the weekend. I think we definitely seen more instances of just, it was that out ball nearly. It didn't probably quite reach Kerr a couple of times, but you could see that if it had, Kerr would have been off, and it was just those long passes coming straight from the back.
What was your thought process with the goalkeepers? Because I was like, when I was looking at them, in my mind this season, there is actually very little to pull them apart. And when I was looking up the stats, I was correct. My purely eye looking at the two of them. So Zinsberger's definitely started more games, but in terms of save rate, it's 82% Berger and like 79.6 to Zinsberger. So it's not that much of a difference. But obviously Berger had such an outstanding season last year. We know what she's capable of, whereas Zinsberger has probably proven she's capable of a lot more this season than we thought she was.
She's been the busier keeper as well.
Definitely the busier keeper, yeah. And Berger also probably dropped out of favour a little bit as well at the turn of the year. So that was another thing. But I think whenever I see her, I don't really have a worry. Sometimes goalkeepers can make you a bit nervy. And And I don't think Berger I think she instills confidence and commands her back line. Since Berger is definitely busier, and sometimes when you look at it, you're kind of going, there is a little probably a mistake in her, like some of the passing out from the back sometimes can get Arsenal into trouble. We probably seen that a little bit at the weekend as well between the defenders, and maybe it was just because it was a bit of a new back line really. I think they were playing out like McCabe at right back just didn't work for Arsenal. And yeah, there was a few nervy moments there, I think. So
you went with the Berger. The great. And when it came to you do love an attack. Like, I think this is well established from our team of the week when it comes to an attack-minded team. That is Emma Carroll's pick. But from the four that you picked out, who was the one that was kind of I have to have this person in my team. There's no way that I can have a Chelsea Arsenal combined 11 and not have this person in it.
Well, there's two of them, and it's Mead and Kerr. You couldn't not have both of those in. Harder and Mead may have been up for a little bit more of a debate, especially on the seasons. Well, Mead has had an outstanding season, but as I said, had Frank Kirby been fit, she probably would have went into that top three. But yeah, Miedema and Kerr, just like any team would go mad to have one of them, let alone two of them. So there would have been no arguments about the two of them going into the team anyway.
How much longer do we think we'll have?
It was just how to fit them in.
From? I don't know. Will she be up for selection next season? It remains to be seen.
You know, that's it. Like, you would hope that we get to see her in the WSL, but there'll be no surprise if she goes to a team like Barcelona or something. And
I kind of wonder what she would do at a Barcelona.
Hard to think.
Like, the team is so stacked.
Still add something. It's hard to think that, but
yeah,
I think
I just even think for her
would suit them. Yeah, but you know, she'll probably go and win a Champions League with them. So
that is also true. This is me being like, don't leave the WSL, stay with us, please. Well, Emma, thank you so much for presenting us with your combined 11. We will be back to regularly scheduled programming next week with our team of the week returning in all its beautiful glory, and as will all your screens. Everyone on Twitter can look out for those. Your weekly picture is always enjoyed. And if you have any thoughts or opinions, you can get them into us at Off the Ball using the hashtag OTBKoiGig. Joining us this week on the podcast is probably the most talked about Irish player of the last week for all good reasons. Big and wide Everton and Ireland goalkeeper Courtney Brosnan. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's great to see you. Not almost as great as it is to see you between the sticks last week, because that was particularly incredible and I enjoyed it very much. Not much to the displeasure of my not footballing enjoying brother, who was sitting on the couch beside me, and every time a ball would go near your net, I would just start screaming and be like, no. And he was very confused by the whole thing. But how are you feeling almost a week later?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still just delighted, like obviously really happy with the performance and getting a result like that away from home. So I think just still kind of riding that high a little bit.
And for Emma Byrne to say probably the best performance she's seen from an Irish goalkeeper. I mean, I know Emma, she doesn't give out compliments willy-nilly. Like, so how did that feel like coming from the Irish goalkeeping legend?
Yeah, I think that was unbelievable. I saw the tweet and kind of just texted my dad and was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then we were on the plane and Anya O'Gorman kind of said the same thing. She knows Emma well, and she was like, oh, she doesn't give out compliments. You don't need it. So really take that one in. So obviously it's kind of just amazing to get such high praise from obviously such a legend in Ireland.
Can you tell us a little bit about like your build up and I suppose prep to a match like that? Because from Vera Pauw's comments after the game, it seemed a bit uncertain in the lead up as to who would actually be the goalkeeper for the match. And with it being such a pivotal, I mean, we were talking on the show afterwards, I think most Irish commentators were saying we would take not losing by a lot. We weren't even expecting to get anything.
1-0 I lost. If I would have been like amazing.
Yeah.
Couldn't have predicted it. It was class.
Yeah. Yeah, so could you tell us a little bit about, I suppose, how you mentally prepared for such a big game?
Yeah, I think obviously like when you come into the international, it's always so crazy because it's so focused on the games and the results right away. So I think obviously you just try to transition from club into that. And I mean, I think every single player just tries to prepare as if they're going to play and kind of get themselves ready. So obviously I had played in the previous game, so it was sort of in that mindset to just train hard, keep improving and showing myself, and then obviously be able to do my best when the decision was made.
It's definitely, I think, like, it's probably been one of the most talked about positions for Irish fans over the last couple of, like, between the Euros campaign and then coming into the World Cup qualifying campaign. And most, like, part of it is as well because we actually, it's a position that we're quite stacked in terms of options, which we aren't always the rest of the way. But how do you handle that? Because, I mean, you look at the commentary about your performances the last week and before, and they've been overwhelmingly positive, but you've definitely been at the face of quite a lot of criticism as well. And with not playing regularly for club as well, there's like not as many opportunities, I suppose, for you to say, look, I made this mistake, but here is what I can do.
Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, I think we just have such a great group of goalkeepers. So I think coming into camp, it's absolutely amazing to get to work with obviously Grace and Megan and Eve. So I think it's a really like healthy and competitive environment where we're like pushing each other, obviously, and then we want each other to kind of succeed. And then I think it's sort of obviously just kind of having that inner belief in yourself and knowing kind of what you're capable of. And as you said, if the game time's maybe not coming, still saying, okay, I know what I can do. And then when those opportunities come, kind of being able to show that, I think is really important. And obviously you just try to focus on the tasks at hand and see what you can do.
I always find the goalkeeper union so interesting because you know, you play any other position on the pitch. If you're a centre mid, sometimes you might be redeployed fullback or a different defensive or attacking. For goalkeeper, there's one person for one position. Like it's so competitive, but it always seems to be a goalkeeper union. Is that just because you're in the trenches together? It is the worst position on the pitch, and you just have that common kind of, right, we want the best for each other because obviously a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's all that's spoken about. It happens anywhere else on the pitch and it's not. Is it just because you have to have a different mentality?
Yeah, I think it's like that camaraderie, and it's sort of like there's no one else that can understand kind of what you go through as a goalkeeper and kind of what it's like to be in that situation, as you said, that you concede a bad goal or that you make a game-winning save or something like that. So I think it's just kind of like you definitely bond over that because these people have been there and they've experienced those things in their games as well. So I think that's kind of what makes the position so kind of unique and so special.
And you're all mad. Every goalkeeper is absolutely
100%.
bonkers. You're all mad. You'd have to be though. You would.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's part of it. You're throwing yourself, like you're 5'9". You were coming out catching it over girls who are have a good few inches on you and probably a lot of muscle and stuff like that. So you have to just have that focus and that mental mentality.
Yeah, 100%.
And who you talk about, like the goalkeepers union, and between all the different clubs you play for and even at an international level, I suppose, who has been the person that's maybe had the biggest impact on you as a fellow player? I mean, it might not even be a goalkeeper. It could be someone who runs drills with you during a training session.
Yeah, I think like from a coaching perspective, I've gained so much from my goalkeeper coach at Everton this season, Ian McCalden. I think he's just like one of those coaches that like is so good as a coach, but then as like a mentor, as you said, kind of talking about different situations. How do you deal with when this happens, things like that. So I think he has helped push me so much in that, like you said, I might not be playing as much game time as I would like, but I feel like I'm still learning so much, and he's putting me in scenarios that are helping me to develop, without that game time and obviously in the trainings that he does. And then I think from like a player perspective, obviously I'm quite close. Me and Grace Maloney are really good friends. So I think obviously she's been in the WSL. I play in the WSL. So she's someone like I chat to quite a lot about, obviously, like our games on the weekends or just sending each other clips saying, hey, what do you think about this, all that. And then obviously in the national team, it's great to kind of have someone that I know she has my back and obviously I have her back. So it's like great to be kind of supporting each other and there for each other.
You mentioned there about coaches at Everton and just having that mentorship. I heard through the grapevine that you're doing your UEFA licenses at the moment. I think you just came off a 4-hour class. So we are very grateful that you were here. But what stage are you at with that, and why? I suppose what pushed you to actually do it? Because it's something we talked about on the podcast with Emma Byrne, actually, where she was saying she was quite frustrated at the fact that there aren't more goalkeepers going into the coaching line to kind of come through the ranks and hopefully someday give their talent to the Irish squad and help us develop that position more and more.
Yeah, so I think we're only in the second block there, so I'm sort of just in the beginning stages, but I agree. I feel like it's always been something where I'm like thought about it. I'm obviously so passionate and I'm like love the thought of coaching, and I think I love even more as like a goalkeeper that you kind of have that special relationship where you can really develop someone and see the progress. So I think it's just, we have such a unique perspective. So I think it would be amazing to kind of, as you said, be able to continue, take my knowledge from playing and hopefully kind of help the next generation keep improving from there.
Yeah, because I think that the generation at the moment that are probably playing, they wouldn't have had people who've been coached like you. So you're getting amazing coaching now, but the generation before you wouldn't have had that. So the improvements are only going to go from strength to strength. The problem is just trying to keep people in the game, keep people in the Irish game in particular, and develop it over here, because we should be producing very good goalkeepers, given that a lot of the girls grow up playing Gaelic football, their hand-eye coordination should be good and things like that. But it has been, the gap has been coaching. So to hear that you're doing it is obviously amazing, and hopefully you can encourage more and more of people, and hopefully we'll see that back in Ireland as well.
Definitely.
And with the coaching licenses, Courtney, is this something that you're looking, like, are you looking ahead to when the day comes where you stop playing, and is that the route that you kind of think you want to follow, that you want to push towards coaching, or is this just something that piqued your interest now and you're not entirely sure what you might want to do? God forbid the day comes when you can't play anymore.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination. I think it was, obviously it's a good opportunity to kind of get a different perspective while I'm playing, to kind of see how this side of things work. And then I think I do have some interests, but it's not something where I was like, oh, I 100% know I want to be a coach. So I think it's like kind of exploring that now and seeing where that takes me. As you said, when the time comes when I'm no longer playing, need something else to be doing.
We're not retiring you off just yet.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I promise when I ask those questions, I'm not trying to put you to the bench. I am curious, because even last week when we were on the podcast, we were talking about coaching and trying to get more women and girls into that position. So whenever we talk, especially to current players who are going through it, it's always interesting to get the perspective of what first kind of brought you to that point and why you want to do it, and like what you're looking to do with it at some stage, because as well, that you can do all your badges, but if you don't actually use them, then it doesn't come down the line. I wanted to ask you a bit about the setup at Everton this year, because obviously it's been a really difficult season for the club. I mean, managers coming and going. At the start of the season, it was really optimistic. There were some amazing players coming in. It hasn't really transpired on the pitch. What has the kind of atmosphere around the club been like, and how have you found being there this year? Because as well, it's your first year with the club.
Yeah, I think obviously when the opportunity came up, I was really excited about it and felt like it was a great place to be, and kind of a club with a lot of ambitions and bringing in really great players. So I think obviously everyone is a little bit disappointed with our results and things like that. But I'd say like the atmosphere and like the group of girls, it's amazing. I feel like we have world-class players, and it's just great to like be able to train with these people that are at such a high level. So I think it's like taking this year and kind of using it as maybe like a learning year, and hopefully pushing on from there to be able to, like, as you said, get maybe some more results and kind of see more on the pitch of what we feel that the quality that we have.
Yeah, and do you think it's a thing that maybe next season, because you've had this season together and you've gone through what you've gone through this season, that we will see things start to click, or do you think another overhaul is what's required?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit hard to tell, but obviously I would be optimistic that things would start to click. And I think obviously this year with lots of different managers and things like that maybe hasn't gone as planned. So I think you'd like to see that translate into a more positive year next year for sure.
And what about your own ambitions? So I think it was a season 1 contract you signed with Everton initially, so that will be up this summer. And is the WSL somewhere that you're looking to stay? Or I know you've had experiences in France as well. You might want to go try out the NWSL. Is trying out different leagues something that you're interested in? And I suppose I asked this question as well because you haven't been getting the game time at Everton, but obviously you have learned a lot. I mean, I think anyone watching you over the last year can tell that you have come on so much. So for you, what is going on for you in terms of next career steps?
Yeah, I think it's like, obviously it's such a juggling act because there's so many different things. Like you see yourself improving, but then you want to get more game time. So it's kind of looking at things and kind of seeing where the balance is. And I think obviously, I mean, I want to be playing at club. I mean, you play football to be on the pitch. So I think that obviously weighs heavily in my decision. And I think I've loved my time in the WSL. I think it's a great league, and I would definitely want to continue to play here because I think it obviously has some of the top players. And obviously I feel like I've learned a lot and grown a lot from playing here. So I think continuing that would be great. And then, but as you said, like there's so many other leagues that are great too. So I could see myself going somewhere else, but I think I do enjoy England quite a lot, I would say.
I'd say you caught a few Swedish eyes, no doubt. So we'll watch that space as well.
Do things like that kind of run through your mind when you play a game like that, especially on the international stage against a team like Sweden? I mean, I know I was seeing on Twitter and stuff that they were quite unhappy with like time wasting and different things, which we call good game management.
I was like, more of that, please.
But when you are given the opportunity to play, I suppose, outside the WSL, and if you are thinking, I wouldn't mind traveling a little bit, does that ever cross your mind, or are you just completely focused on the game that's in front of you?
Yeah, I think honestly, as soon as that whistle blows and you're out there, like you don't really think about anything else except for the game and kind of what you have to do. So I feel like stuff like that, I wouldn't really be thinking about it because I'm more worried about the balls that are flying at the net at the time.
Well, that's fair. And I mean, I know we've complimented a lot, but it was a very good performance last week, and it didn't look like you were thinking about anything else other than making sure Sweden didn't score. And we very much appreciated you making sure none of those balls went in. How are you feeling about the qualifying campaign at this stage?
Yeah, I think everyone's still super excited, and it's obviously great to get a positive result, but I think we're obviously still know we have a lot of work to do and need to kind of get results to finish the job. So I feel like everyone's excited and lifted by the result, but also realizing like we need to keep our heads down and kind of put in the work to finish the job that we kind of have set out for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think you'll have a point to prove against Slovakia because maybe glossed over, but there was a good bit of criticism after that, and probably rightfully so, because our expectations are high now, which is obviously a really, really good thing. But with that comes pressure, and learning to deal with that pressure, I think, is the one element that this team probably needs to prove, just based on Ukraine, based on Slovakia. So going into those couple of games, if you go out with a confident performance, I think that's half the battle. It's just that those little seeds of doubt that just need to be ironed out, because everyone is very excited from the outside as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like at this stage in the international game, every team you play is good. Like the quality is so high, whether you're playing the first place team in the group or the second, third, or fourth place. So I think it's just, like you said, important for us to keep our confidence, but also then kind of show that on the pitch as well.
Yeah.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week, and best of luck with the rest of the season, and also, of course, with the qualifying campaign. We will be watching eagerly.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's it for this week's episode of the Koi Gig Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. As ever, we'll be back with you again next week with all your WSL and WNL goodness, as well as everything else in between too. So make sure you're subscribed to the Koi Gig podcast on the OTB podcast feed and in all the other usual places, and we will chat to you then.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.